airport into a racetrack.
It's a beautiful setting. We're sandwiched between the lake and the skyline of downtown Cleveland, and we're not trying to be overly kind. The race organizers here have done a tremendous job converting this airport into a pretty legitimate major league race course.
On the front row for today's race, a driver who has struggled recently, Mario Andretti, and alongside rookie Al Unser Jr.
It's been a while since Mario Andretti has won an Indianapolis car race, but he feels pretty racy today. He's deep in concentration. I think that's the best word to describe Mario, and he has great hopes for this race. Remember, he finished second here a year ago. And Al Unser Jr., I'll tell you, this young man, despite his limited experience, is truly a magician behind the wheel. Talking with his crew yesterday, even they are astounded by his performance and his ability to read the race car. Remember, this is the first time he's come to a road course with his own team, and here he is on the front row.
Not all men in today's race, though. Desiree Wilson is in the field, and as per usual for our championship auto racing team races in the pit area, Gary Lee.
And right now, a motion charge. Before Desiree climbed in the car, she gave Rose Weiser, the car owner, a big hug. She is alone with her thoughts right now. Let's see if they'll share those with us. Desiree, your feelings just before firing the engine.
Well, at the moment, my heart's beating pretty loud, and I'm just very, very excited to be here.
Obviously, you've had some trouble adapting to this particular course, although road racing is your forte. Everything ready now?
Yes, this is a race, and everything has to be ready, so we're ready.
So consequently, right now, as the helmet goes on, it doesn't matter whether she's a lady or a gentleman. She's a race driver. We'll be back with more from Cleveland after these messages.
And that is the shot from the Goodyear blimp on this dramatic and exciting afternoon in Cleveland, Ohio, as we get set to bring you live the Budweiser Cleveland 500. The skyline in the background, and right under the blimp is Lake Erie, and several of the pleasure boats and the sailboats, even the Coast Guard on hand here for the event. Of course, spectators are gathering to watch it, and the Coast Guard is standing by just in case there should be an accident and one of the drivers would go into the lake, which is possible. Well, Jim Foster is in the control tower, and he's standing by right now, ready to give the clearances to the drivers for today's race. Jim Foster.
Thank you, Bob Jenkins. Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Taxi your Budweiser Lola into the #1 position and await takeoff clearance. Al Unser Jr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Pull up on Mario's right wing in your Coors Light Silver Bullet Eagle. Bobby Rahal from Dublin, Ohio. Taxi behind Mario in the first roll in your Red Roost in March 83C. FABI from Milan, Italy. Taxi your Skull Bandit behind Al Unser Jr. and stay clear on Bobby Rahal's right wing. Pete Halsmer from Lafayette, Indiana. You're cleared for max performance takeoff climb in your RCRO PC-10. Rick Mears of Bakersfield, California. Taxi alongside Pete and await your takeoff clearance in your Penske PC-11. Al Unser Sr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Keep your spacing in your Hertz Penske PC-11 behind Rick and contact approach control. JOSELE Garza from Mexico City, Mexico. Hold short for landing traffic in your Machinist's Union Penske PC-10. Gordon JOHNCOCK from Coldwater, Michigan. You're cleared in your STP oil treatment special. Make a right turn after takeoff and stand by for further climb instructions. Howdy Holmes from Ann Arbor, Michigan in your Domino's Pizza Hot One, March 83. Cleared onto the high-speed taxiway. Roger Mears from Bakersfield, California, and your Machinist's Union Penske PC-10. Taxi behind Gordon and keep your spacing. Chris Neifel from River Woods, Illinois. This is Burke Lakefront Tower. You're cleared for takeoff in your CFI Primus Cosworth. Now back to you, Bob.
Thank you very much, Jim. Those are the first 12 starters. Now here is the rest of the field. Starting in the 7th row, 13th position, 12th position to John Paul Jr., car number 12. Outside of row number 7, Mike Mosley in car number 18. The 8th row, Kevin COGAN in car number 6, and Chip Ganassi in number 60. The 9th row, Pancho Carter in 21, Tom Sneva in 5. The 10th row, Bill Whittington in 94, and Scott Brayton in 37. The 11th row, car 10, Tony Bettenhausen, 34, Desiree Wilson. The 12th row, car 15, Bill Tempero, and 46, Bill KREUGER. In the 13th row, Steve Chassie in car 56 and Herm Johnson in 42. And the 14th row consists of Bill Alsop in car number 11 and Donnie and Gaius in car number 40.
And those in the grandstands have your flag.
Now let's go to Gary Lee at the start-finish line.
To these heroic men as they drive down the main
We're just moments away from the command to start
grandstand
of the state of Ohio. And we have been told by Michael Knight, the media liaison with CART, that we're about 30 seconds away because not all the drivers are prepared in their cars. So once we get the cue that CART is ready, we are ready. And here, once again, for the command, the governor of the state of Ohio.
Racing fans in the stands, let's get on our feet as I now give the command. Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
I was going to do that because they said the engine actually come from the top side.
28 championship cars roar into action and get set to go on this 2.48-mile road course, 125 laps, 500 kilometers. The excitement begins to build as the crew of Pancho Carter has raised their hands, signifying that that car has started. Outside of him, Tom Sneva in car number 5, the winner of this year's Indy 500. His car also is started. The drivers will be taking at least 2 warm-up laps before we get the green flag. We'll be back for the start of the Budweiser Cleveland 500 in a moment as we present you live today coverage from Burke Lakefront Airport. We take a closer look at this 2.48-mile road course at Burke Lakefront Airport. Start-finish line. Immediately after it, there is a left-hand turn, then a right-hand turn, and a short straightaway before we get into turn number 3, which we'll refer to as the hairpin. They proceed from that area through a sweeping turn we refer to as the kink. They move up to approximately 150 to 160 miles an hour before downshifting to turn number 5, and then turn number 6. Then they go into the area we call the middle stretch. Then turn 7 and turn 8, and they enter the west end of the race course that we will refer to as the back 40. That includes turns 8, 9, and 10. Then they move on to the front stretch, which is the fastest portion of the racetrack, before turns 11 and 12, and once again, the start-finish line, which is designated as the pit area there on the graphic on our TV screens.
The unusual aspect of this course as a racetrack for the drivers is its flat terrain. There is no topography here to assist the drivers in getting around this racetrack. There's a shot from an infield camera. The infield is expanse here. These are the cars coming down the front stretch. There's another shot of the front stretch before that final turn, turn number 11. They go into turn number 12, which is a hard left-hander, and down the front stretch across the start-finish line. But again, back to the subject of the flatness of this track. Usually, you have terrain or landmarks for the drivers to use as checkpoints for slowing down going into corners. That's not the case here. It's perfectly flat and very difficult to find the turns.
One other problem that they may encounter here this afternoon is the entrance and exit to and from the pit area.
The entrance to the pit area is off of the back 40, off of turn number 10. The car's right there moving into the third turn, or actually the first major turn, the first hard right-hander. There's another shot of turn number 3. In the background there you see the pits. On the right-hand side in the background is the exit from the pit area. The cars will be coming out of that exit and trying to merge into the high-speed lane just to the driver's right, and also, or rather, yeah, to the driver's right and to the right-hand side, as you, the left-hand side as you're looking at it.
Specifically, 12 turns, 8 right-handed turns, and 4 lefts. 10 90-degree turns. The hairpin is a 35-degree turn, and the kink is a 45-degree turn. Because there are taxiways and runways here, they are quite long and wide. The front stretch 2,500 feet long and 150 feet wide. The back stretch is 2,200 feet long and 150 feet wide. And the middle stretch, 1,700 feet long, and that's the area the cars are in right now. It is 75 feet wide. you can also see markings on the taxiways and the roadways, the white markings, and that has been giving the drivers a bit of a problem.
Obviously, in an airport, you have to have very wide painted strips to guide planes down from 3,000 to 4,000 feet, and of course, that final landing approach. Those paint strips are very, very slippery.
Mario Andretti on the pole with a qualifying speed of 121.443, a couple of miles an hour slower than last year, and alongside of him, somebody that many race enthusiasts think will be the next Mario Andretti, Al Unser Jr.
It's been some time, as we mentioned at the top of the show, something like the last 24 IndyCar races since Mario Andretti has won. Remember back in 1963-64 when Andretti came up with the same types of conversations and headlines beginning to come to the way of Al Unser Sr. There is perhaps the world's most famous racing driver, Mario Andretti, in the Paul Newman Carl Haas Lola, maybe its best performance of the year so far. And on the right-hand side of Mario, the left-hand side of your screen, certainly one of the stars of the future, Al Unser Jr.
The pace car remains out on the racetrack, and we do not know at this point whether or not we will get a start. The pace car goes straight instead of taking turns 1 and 2, so is off of the race course itself. The field moves through turn number 11, now to turn number 12, and we anticipate the green flag, and the green flag is out. The race is on. Mario Andretti and Bobby Rahal move up quickly as they go into the chicane, turns 1 and 2. Bombs go off on the backstretch as the cars file through turns 1 and 2 and now head for the hairpin. It is Al Unser Jr. in the lead as they go out of the hairpin and down this long sweeping turn known as the Kink. Al Unser Jr. Mario Andretti pulling alongside on the backstretch, and Mario Andretti sneaks into the lead as they go into turns 5 and now turn number 6. Andretti, Al Unser Jr. and Bobby Rahal.
1 mile and 2 lead changes already.
They go into the middle stretch now and head for turn number 7. They go north on the racetrack for just a short bit now to turn number 8, a right-hand turn. Again, a short straightaway and into turn number 9. Now, they are now in the area of the racetrack we refer to as the back 40, the west end of the track. Through turn number 9, now through turn number 10, and on to the straightaway. It is Mario Andretti leading. Bobby Rahal in car number 2 has moved into second position, and Al Unser Jr. is third. Down the front stretch, Andretti leads him now into turn number 11 and turn number 12. Mario Andretti leads lap number 1 of 125 here in Cleveland, Ohio, as the Cleveland Budweiser 500 is underway. They come out of turn number 2 now and head for the hairpin. It is Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., JOSELE Garza, Bobby, then Mears, then Al Unser Sr., and the rest of the field filing through turn number 3.
Last year, at the start of this race, we had several cars miss the very first turn and go straight after the main stretch rather than making it first left-hander. No such problem today. A couple of the cars. Now we have a spin.
Desiree Wilson, the female driver in this race, has spun but has kept the engine going and pulls back out onto the race course. So Desiree Wilson spins early in the event, but no problem. She's back in competition. And this is how it happened. She just got too wide, it looks like, going through the hairpin.
Well, there is some debris, of course, that kicks up after you practice on a course for a couple of days, and Desiree got out of the racing groove and up into the marbles, and it just got away. She has been struggling with that car most of the weekend, but I'll tell you something, here is one legitimate racing driver who just happens to be a lady. That's all there is to it.
And Mario Andretti is about to complete lap number 2 in the lead. Bobby Rahal still running in second position. Al Unser Jr. in third. And a good performance so far by JOSELE Garza, who is running in 4th position. Then in 5th, it's Teo Fabi. 6th place is Rick Mears, and in 7th is Al Unser Sr. Mario Andretti moves through the hairpin, now through the kink, as Lake Erie is to his left and the Armco barrier separating the race course from Lake Erie. The 3rd place battle is underway between Al Unser Jr. and JOSELE Garza in car number 55. Garza, as they move through turn number 6 onto the middle stretch, moving right up on Al Unser Jr.'s rear wing. Let's see if he can make a pass as they go through turn number 7. Now go north just a short distance into turn number 8. Garza pursuing Al Unser Jr. for 3rd position.
Well, Well, neither one of these drivers has ever really been close to winning an Indianapolis car race. JOSELE Garza is the winner of a Super V race, and of course UNSER Jr. won a number of Super V races and Can-Am races in the past couple of seasons. Garza, remember, a couple of years ago led Indianapolis 500 for a number of laps the first half of the race.
There is UNSER Jr. as the rest of the cars make their way through turn number 11. We have completed 3 laps now, and one car has pulled off of the race course, and we see some smoke coming from the backstretch. We're not sure whether or not the car is on fire or whether there is just a mechanical problem, but there is the smoking car. It is Danny Ungaius. Now, instead of making turn number 5, he went straight on the main straightaway and pulled the car to a stop near a safety vehicle. You can see Danny Ungaius has jumped out of the car and appears to be okay. And we have a couple of other cars. That is the overhead shot of Danny Ungaius there by the safety vehicle. Danny Ungaius out early in the Budweiser Cleveland 500.
No crash involved there. Danny just with some problems in the engine. It's been a tough weekend for the Patrick team. They lost a gearbox in one of the race cars, and late yesterday afternoon, Danny Ungaius drove this car back to the hangar, which is serving as the temporary garage area here at Cleveland this weekend, because the engine was overheating severely, and they made an engine change between the practice sessions yesterday afternoon. A long, tough weekend for the Patrick team, but their frontline driver, JOHNCOCK, is still out there, and right now, Gordy running in the top half of the field.
See the car safety vehicles that have gathered around Danny Ungaius. While the crowd looks on and Mario Andretti hangs on to the lead with Bobby Rahal running second. We'll take this break and be right back in Cleveland, Ohio for the Budweiser Cleveland 500. Above the Budweiser Cleveland 500, the Goodyear Blimp America from Houston, Texas. At the controls, senior pilot Don McDuff from Anson, Texas. Well, ESPN presents Top Rank Boxing Thursday, July 7th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 Pacific Time, live from Resorts International in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Sal Marciano and Al Bernstein will be reporting. The 10-round lightweight bout features Kenny Bang Bang Bogner against Trevor Evelyn, and also seeing action will be the Philadelphian welterweight Roger Stafford in a 10-round bout. When we mention the transformation from an airport to a racetrack, and we'll take a closer look at exactly how that transformation occurs. The conversion from airport to racetrack was a mammoth undertaking and took about a month. First, the taxiway, the lane furthest from Lake Erie, was closed, and the 700 concrete barriers were moved into place. The middle runway then became a taxiway, and all takeoffs and landings used the outer runway. This procedure resulted in some delays, but Burke's traffic is light enough that the delays were usually short. Temporary seating for over 50,000 spectators was shipped to Cleveland immediately following the Detroit Grand Prix. Hundreds of workers were hired to accomplish this due to the span of a little more than a month between each race. Add to all this construction about 2 miles of fence, 130 tents, 50 or so concession stands, plants, and railroad ties. And you've got yourself an airport suitable for a major automobile race. The promotion of this event has been going on for months, and it has paid off as the stands are packed. And right now, the fans gathered here are watching Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, in the Newman Haas Budweiser Lola in the lead. He has led all the way to this point, and we are on lap number 7. Gary Lee has a further update on the situation regarding Danny Ungaius.
Owen Snyder is a crew member on Ungaius' team. He was also in radio communication. Owen, I know Danny doesn't say much, but what indeed did he say about that altercation?
Well, on the first lap, he said the motor wasn't running very good, and he'd probably have to pull in. Then he went in the turn, looked in the mirror, and it was without getting hurt.
That's the way Danny is. Very short, very concise, and to the point.
Yes, he don't say too much.
And the Sea Ray Boats Wildcat out of the race.
The cars move out of turn number 10 onto the stretch. Teo Fabi leading John Paul down the front stretch here. Teo Fabi from Milan, Italy, and right behind him, John Paul Jr. Of course, Teo Fabi won the pole position for Indianapolis, also won in Milwaukee. But when he got here on the road course, which you would consider his specialty, he wound up in 4th qualifying position at 120.301.
Well, he was considerably slower than 4th fast until late yesterday, and they found a couple of secrets and moved way up in the grid. That guy following him, John Paul Jr., by the way, had a great year last year road racing. He's probably the top road racer in the country in 1982. Those of you who follow racing remember that John Paul had a horrendous crash at Indianapolis and broke his left leg. He was racing today in a cast that is very bulky and most difficult to drive a road course in. He's doing a most admirable job with a left leg that just barely fits down inside the cockpit compartment, and it's very difficult for him to do the clutch action with that left foot with the big cast on, left leg actually.
Well, the drivers shift somewhere between 20 and 25 times on this road course. We talked to both John Paul Jr. and Chris Neifel. And into the pit area is Gordon Johncock in car number 20. Both of those guys admitted that they don't chip nearly as much as the other drivers. John Paul's feet are so big because of the cast, and Neifel's naturally, as we mentioned. Gordon Johncock into the pits just briefly, but he pulls out, and the car may have stalled as the crew runs up behind him and shoves him away. There he goes, Johncock on the move again.
Gordie Johncock was brought in by CART officials. He was black flagged. They felt they saw some type of liquid coming from the march out of the Pat Patrick Racing stable.
Once again, we're following the 9th place car, FABI, car number 33, the Skull Bandit, moving down the middle stretch.
FABI running the Skull Bandit. That's a company that's become so active in automobile racing. After starting with NASCAR, they branched out into Indianapolis type car racing, even sprint car racing on dirt, and most recently even entered a car at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, one of the most aggressive advertising activity companies really in racing around the world today.
We talked with Teo Fabi earlier in the weekend. As we mentioned, he's a specialist on these road courses, and we asked him for his opinion on this particular course here at Burke Lakefront Airport.
I don't think it's very challenging for a driver, and but at the moment it's very difficult for me to set the car up.
Teo Fabi running in 9th position right now, pretty much by himself. He has put a little bit of distance between himself and John Paul Jr., who he was running with just a few minutes ago. Teo Fabi from the KINK now running into turn number 5 and into turn number 6. Gordon Johncock, as we mentioned, in the pit area just briefly. Gary Lee has more on that situation.
Apparently a CART official reported a spray from the back of Gordie Johncock's car number 20. The car was brought in. It was found to be dry. The crew used the 7-second stop to top off the fuel. However, Gordie almost killed the Cosworth pulling out, but he did make that first stop in only 7 seconds. Again, the car was dry.
Gordon Johncock, who is 4th in the point standings at this time, is back out on the racetrack. The leader continues to be Mario Andretti from Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Running in 2nd position is Bobby Rahal. In 3rd place, car number 17, Al Unser Jr. 4th position is Rick Mears. In 5th place is JOSELE Garza. 6th place, Al Unser Sr. 7th position belongs to car number 9, Roger Mears. And there is Bobby Rahal in the Red Roofs in March, car number 2 running in 2nd place.
As we watch Rahal, that is to say, Mario Andretti, remember, continues to run out front, running very smoothly. Let's make a comment here about pacing in this race.
And here is some debris on the racetrack. In the hairpin area of the track, it looks like it's to the inside of where the natural groove is. And you can see a safety official coming out there and picking it up. I believe that was a piece of debris from Phil Kruger's car number 46. We go back to Bobby Rahal.
Again, a comment about the pacing. This figures to be a very long and tough race, particularly on the equipment. Last year, as Gordie Johncock comes back into the pits for yet another time, we did not see a black flag this time, but Johncock comes to stop again. Last year, a very limited number of cars finished this race, and a lot of drivers feel as though they have to conserve their equipment in order to do well here today. Kevin COGAN, who led so many laps, was so strong here in 1982. As you see Mike Fanning, the engine man for the team in the foreground, comes to a stop, and I guarantee you this is not a scheduled pit stop. Car number 72, Bob, is now being shown and scored as...
Car number 72, Chris Neifel, reported as out of the race. As we focus in here once again on Teo Fabi and John Paul Jr. Teo Fabi taking the hairpin to the inside of the racetrack and then swinging out for the KINK. They reach almost most of the highest speeds of this racetrack at about this point before they have to get off the accelerator. Really, the fastest part of the racetrack is the front stretch before they enter turn number 11. There is JOSELE Garza on the middle stretch of this racetrack as Kevin COGAN and Gordon Johncock continue to wait in the pit area.
Most of the drivers figured that they need to run anywhere from 3 to 4 seconds a lap slower than what they did in qualifying. As you see Garza moving underneath Tony Bettenhausen Jr. going down the backstretch. Run 4 to 5 miles per hour slower than they did in qualifying in order to have enough car to go the 500 kilometers.
The crew checks over the car of Gordon Johncock. He is out of the cockpit meanwhile with our Gary Lee.
To stop a couple of laps back, very short. You were out again, but what's the problem now?
Well, the car, we had transmission trouble going into the race and was pretty sure that we wouldn't be able to finish, and it kept jumping out of second gear with me, but all of a sudden the oil light came on and no oil pressure, so we got something wrong in the engine somewhere.
Did the team not also have a gearbox problem with the team car yesterday with Chip Ganassi?
Yes, we did, and Chip is in my backup car driving it. It looks like number 20 out there, but it's not, but Chip is driving the backup car.
So with now Gordy out and Danny and Gaius out, only one Pat Patrick car still in the race, driven by Chip Ganassi.
Gordon Johncock had switched from the Wildcat to the March for this race, but it's an early out for him. Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Al Unser Jr., and Rick Mears, the top 4 at this point. 4 cars out of the race at this point with 13 laps complete. Danny and Gaius, Gordon Johncock, Chris Neifel, and Kevin COGAN. And Gary Lee is standing by with Kevin COGAN in his pit.
An early retiree. What's the problem out there, Kevin?
Well, it's overheating again, same as last time. I guess I looked at it right away at the beginning of the race, and we were pushing the maximum, and then after that it was going way past the maximum heat, and I just decided I better save them a few bucks.
So you knew from the very beginning it would be a short drive.
Well, early on in the race, the temperature was way too high, and I was also having a lot of difficulty with my shift linkage, really having a lot of trouble, so it wasn't much fun up to that point.
How about the body temperature? How oppressive is it out there for the driver?
These guys are going to earn their pay today. There's no question about it.
A lot of cars perhaps falling by the wayside and not too many cars finishing.
Well, I think the heat's going to take its toll on motors. I mean, mine was out very early, but I'll tell you the physical part of it for the drivers, these guys are really going to have a tough time today. It's very hot, humid, and the track is bumpy, very tight. There's no resting place on this track.
A good workout in Cleveland. One of the spectators early is Kevin COGAN.
Mario Andretti continues in the lead, but Teo Fabi has now moved up to 7th position. Teo Fabi currently in 6th position, that is. Teo Fabi in 6th place right now as he moves down the front stretch. The interval between the leader, Mario Andretti, and 2nd place, Bobby Rahal, is about 3.1 seconds. Right ahead of Teo Fabi is JOSELE Garza running in 5th position. As you can see, the cars move through turns 1 and 2. Headed for the hairpin, and Teo Fabi is moving up on JOSELE Garza quickly.
Paint the complete picture of Fabi's race up to this point. He started in 4th position, and then he dropped back to just about 9th position. Now he's moving up again. Teo is one of the drivers who told us yesterday he didn't think that the physical aspect of this race for him as a driver would be a problem. He feels as though he's in excellent physical condition and he should be able to drive just about as fast as the car can go all day long. But he did also point out that he did recognize you have to pace. It's going to be an enormous wear and tear situation on the equipment here today at the Cleveland Burke Lakefront Airport. It's tough enough going 500 kilometers on a road course without the oppressive heat that we have here today.
Fabi is 6th in the point standings with championship auto racing teams. He finished 20th at Atlanta, 26th at Indianapolis, was 3rd at Milwaukee, and as we indicated earlier, won the pole position for 2 of the 4 previous races this year, and today started in 4th position. There is JOSELE Garza leading him down the area in front of the pits across the start-finish line, then completing 16 laps now. JOSELE Garza in front of Teo Fabi as the cars gear down and brake for the hairpin turn, now picking up the throttle quickly and heading for the kink, which is turn number 4 here at Burke Lakefront Airport. And it looks like JOSELE has stretched the interval between himself and Fabi as he has opened up a little bit of distance.
We've had a spin, and looks like Howdy Holmes spun in the hairpin, but Howdy gathers her back up as Chip Ganassi goes by on the high side. Holmes is beginning to make a move also. Howdy had moved up to 7th or 8th position and had been on the track battling with Roger Mears, and I think Tony Bettenhausen Jr. was also involved in that. There is Al Unser Sr., who currently resides in a comfortable 7th position. Looks to me like Al Unser Sr. is just about where he wants to be right now and not really trying to tax that Penske PC-11.
Well, Kevin Kogan had mentioned the fact that there is really no place on this racetrack that you can rest, that you can take your hands off of the steering wheel and take a deep breath because you're busy all the time.
And there goes Fabi getting underneath Josele as they enter turn number 11 and coming into the home stretch. Fabi has finally gotten by Josele after about 3 laps of setting him up.
So Teo Fabi picks up the position. Desiree Wilson right in front of him here as the cars move out of turn number 2. Teo Fabi moving to the inside of Desiree Wilson. So is Josele Garza. And once again, Desiree taking the high line around the turn. Both of the faster cars getting around Desiree and once again into the kink. We mentioned that the fact that the track is very demanding on the race driver, and the heat here this afternoon up into it'll be in the mid-90s before this race is over, and it really is a exhausting and demanding racetrack. Josele Garza getting a little squirrely there coming out of turn number 6 down the middle stretch, staying behind Teo Fabi.
We got a quote that was handed to us by kart officials that Gordon Johncock gave to one of them. He said, "I've never gotten so hot in a race car in such a short period of time." Boy, Bob, this race is like a time bomb. How many of these drivers are going to be able to go the distance with these race cars, and what kind of condition are the drivers as well as the cars going to be in by the time we get up to 400, 450, and even on to 500 kilometers? This could be one of the most intriguing races that we have seen in quite some time, and it's becoming very obvious that the physical fitness of the drivers behind the wheel is a factor. We could have a surprise winner today, and it could be one of those youngsters. Maybe Al Unser Jr., maybe John Paul Jr. You just got a quick glimpse of Al Unser Jr. as Teo Fabi moves in to challenge him. There's Josele Garza. Not really a youngster anymore, but still in his young 20s. Is he in the physical condition to go 500 kilometers here at Cleveland?
All right, let's set them up now the way they're running. The leader, Mario Andretti. 2nd position, Bobby Rahal. 3rd place now is Rick Mears. Al Unser Jr. has dropped back to 4th. Teo Fabi is 5th. In 6th place is Josele Garza. 7th is Al Unser Sr. In 8th position is Roger Mears. And 9th position is Pete Halsmer. And running 10th, car number 12, driven by John Paul Jr.
At this point of this race, the only thing you look at are the cars that are still on the lead lap. You pretty much have to assume that all the drivers who are out there, radio communication as always with the crews, they're certainly feeling the heat, and they're pacing themselves as much as they feel is reasonable at this point. So only those guys who are slipping a lap behind might be in a position to consider themselves in trouble as far as heading for victory so far in this race. Steve Chassis is coming down pit road right now, one of the few stock blocks that entered the race today. Chassis has been in and out a couple of times. But again, going back to the basic storyline here, everybody out there right now is really trying to figure out how slow can I go. Slow maybe isn't exactly the right word, but at what type of pace can I set that maybe is just at the bottom end of speed to make myself and the car go 500 kilometers.
Well, a long streak without a win was broken 2 weeks ago at Milwaukee when Al Unser Sr. was declared the winner of that Rex Mays 150. Now the longest non-winning streak belongs to Mario Andretti, and he at this point is looking strong and on his way to victory. Watch Josele Garza swing out of turn number 6 onto the middle stretch. Mario Andretti leading this event with about a 3-second lead over Bobby Rahal, who is running in 2nd position. Rahal told us earlier he was going to pace himself. This is a 125-lap event, and we are right now only on lap number 20. Al Unser Jr., car number 17, was running in 2nd position, but he continues to fall back and may have lost a gear. We now score him in at least 8th position. He is slowing down considerably, and all of the other cars passing him, and Al Unser Jr. is heading for pit road. Here he comes right now, Al Unser Jr. into the pits for some consultation on exactly what is wrong with that car.
We have completed 20 laps, or about, let's see, 2.5 times 20. 40, what is that, 50 miles, I guess. So we're a little early for a pit stop for fuel. The crew is going to work on what appears to be the engine compartment. A dejected look in the face of Al Unser Jr. certainly had to figure that he was in a position to perhaps do well here today. Gary Lee is ready down in the pits.
Well, the first indication early was perhaps he lost a gear, but right now the cowling comes off that Cosworth. They're going to work on the engine, and there is some look of puzzlement on the part of the crew, so I don't think they really have any idea what the problem is.
Steve Chassis also moving into the pit area. This is at least 2 stops for him. We should see regular pit stops on about lap 25. That's the normal distance that they can travel on about a 2.5-mile track before having to come in for fuel. So within the next 2 or 3 laps, we should see routine pit stops. But this stop now by Al Unser Jr. is not routine. Teo Bobby is in the pit area just ahead of Al Unser Jr. Teo Bobby, I believe this is going to be a regular pit stop as they put fuel in the car and begin to change the rubber both on the left and the right side.
Now, when this race began, most of the crews felt that there would be a significant number of slowdown periods, not necessarily yellow flags around the entire course. We only go to a general yellow condition as Teo pulls away, and certainly did appear to be 22.6 seconds on the stop. Nobody figured that there would be very many general yellow flags, but there would be several slowdown periods of the race because of a condition or a crash somewhere around the racetrack. So most of the crews are pretty much on their own in terms of strategy for stopping. That stop was a little early. Is that an indication that maybe the Skull Bandit crew is using up fuel at a higher rate than the other teams?
And the problem with Al Unser Jr. is an ignition problem, and it looks like that he's going back out onto the racetrack. They may have fixed it, or perhaps they're just sending him out to see if the car will perform. But Al Unser Jr. is back out on the racetrack after having stopped with an ignition problem. Teo Bobby, car number 33, has made his pit stop, so has dropped out of the top 10. But of course, the other leaders, including the man at the right-hand side of your screen, Mario Andretti, the leader of this race, has not made the pit stop as of yet. He's in the middle stretch, now heading for turn number 7, heading north on the racetrack for a short distance, now into turn number 8 and in the back 40. 22 laps have been completed, but Bobby Rahal is closing in on Mario Andretti. Andretti now in turn number 9, a short stretch, turn number 10, out of turn number 10 and on to the long front stretch. When he comes by this time, Mario Andretti will complete 23 laps. Here he is in that Budweiser Newman Oslola, qualifying at 121.443 miles an hour through turns 11 and 12 and crossing the start-finish line. We'll try to indicate how much of a lead he has. Well, it's less than a second. He had a 3-second lead a few laps ago, but Bobby Rahal has closed up within a second as the leaders approach car number 18, Mike Mosley.
September 20th, 1980, almost 3 years ago, Mario Andretti's last win behind the wheel of an Indianapolis car. Bobby Rahal, who's chasing Mario right now. As you see, Andretti put a lap on Mike Mosley. Bobby Rahal won twice in 1982 as a rookie and finished second in the point standings. Andretti had a handful of second-place finishes a year ago, and right now is trying to hold off that Rookie of the Year from the 1982 season. Rahal, there was Mike Mosley putting a hand up and pointing the way for Bobby Rahal to get by. One of the gentlemanly gestures that's pretty commonplace among these IndyCar drivers.
Mike Mosley started in 14th position and is being lapped by the leaders now. Mike Mosley, of course, from Fallbrook, California, the KREUGER car stereo march. He is the third car here in the picture as Mario Andretti and Bobby Rahal are the first two. The interval between first and second there as they once again head down the front stretch, braking for turns 11 and 12, completing lap number 24. The car just ahead of Mario Andretti now, the next to be lapped, the champion of this year's Indy 500, Tom Sneva. There is Tom in car number 4, high on the racetrack, setting up for the hairpin.
Boy, a real head game going on right now. Rahal and Andretti at this point, and Bobby Rahal getting quite low that time, going through the hairpin, kicking up a little bit of dust, but well under control. Rahal and Andretti got to figure that they look like the two teams that are in the best position to do well all day here. Now, at this point, both of them are probably playing a little bit of sight game with each other. Rahal may be holding back a little more than Andretti, or is Andretti holding back more? You don't really know which one is showing the most of his hand. To be sure, neither one of them is showing everything that he has. Andretti has led all 24 laps, but just how much is Rahal holding back? Well, we probably won't know till about the 400-kilometer mark of this event.
Word has come out that John Paul Jr. has pulled off of the race course and is out of the race in car number 12. John Paul Jr., who at one time had moved up into the top 10, reportedly out of the event. And several other drivers are making their routine pit stops as we continue to watch Mario Andretti try to put a lap on Tom Steve. Among those in the pits just a few seconds ago, Roger Mears and Pete Halsper, both of those running in the top 10. Here is another car into the pit area. That is Bobby Rahal, the second place competitor at this point. Routine pit stop for Bobby Rahal. They're looking over the tire situation and apparently electing not to change the rubber. Let's go to Gary.
Well, again, they checked over the right side rubber, did not change, topped off the fuel. Bobby Rahal has a tank inside the car with some liquid refreshment and a hose going up inside the helmet. We talked to Jim Truman, the car owner. He said, yes, this is just routine. Bobby is pacing himself.
Jim Truman, of course, the owner of this racing team and himself a race driver and a racetrack owner. He owns Mid-Ohio Race Course, which is, what, about 75 miles south of here.
Just about, by the way, Rahal went about 75 miles. We got about 70 miles on that load of fuel. That may well be something to keep your eyes on and remember as we get down to the latter stages of this race. Depending upon when that last pit stop comes, crews, of course, try to cut it as close as they can, because the less fuel you have in these cars near the end of the race, the lighter they are, the faster they are.
All right, Bobby Rahal now is looking to move up as he has made his first pit stop of the day. Mario Andretti continues to lead as the people on the boats out in Lake Erie look on. The shot from high overhead and the shot coming from the Goodyear Blimp America from Houston, Texas. We are at Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, Ohio, downtown Cleveland for the second annual Budweiser Cleveland 500. Well, to the north of here, of course, the great country of Canada, and ESPN takes off its fourth straight year of Canadian football coverage when the Winnipeg Blue Bombers host the Ottawa Rough Riders Friday, July 8th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 5:30 Pacific Time. It'll be live from Winnipeg Stadium in Manitoba, Canada. Join us for our fourth straight year of Canadian football. We kick it off on Friday, July the 8th. Here in Cleveland, Ohio, the leader at this point, the driver who's led all the way, Mario Andretti. 27 laps completed, and we begin to wonder, when is Mario going to make the stop? He's gone a lot longer than I thought he would.
Well, and that's also an indication that the boost is turned down a little bit on that car, and that Andretti is really trying to conserve. I tell you, when you can lead as easily as Mario has, and you got to figure he's still conserving, that means that car is strong. Most of the crews figure to go this race about 4 pit stops. That is, if we have a green flag condition around the entire course for the whole race. Just about every 25 laps, you can pretty much figure if everybody wants to go into the pit. Every 25 laps, the next point will be between laps 50 and 55.
There are a lot of problems associated with this racetrack, although we've encountered none so far. Larry Newber takes a closer look.
This is the view the drivers have coming down one of the short straightaways here at the Burke Lakefront Airport, an airport that's been converted to a road course. They're streaming down here at better than 120 miles an hour, and it looks like it goes on just about forever, doesn't it? But that's the problem. Remember, I said this was a short straightaway, and right over there is a 90-degree left turn. The problem with converting an airport to a road course is the lack of the three-dimensional points of perspective for the drivers. The drivers have no terrain, no landmarks for them to use as a judge, as a gauge, where to speed down, where to slow up, particularly for the corners. Also, a lot of the professional road racing drivers are accustomed to running on circuits that are actually marked with signs saying 3, 2, 1 to give them an indication as to where to slow down going into one of the turns. This view for the drivers, an unusual one, and one I suggest that's probably just a little scary, particularly if you cut your racing eye teeth on a high-banked oval somewhere in the Midwest.
And the cars continue to maneuver around this 2.48-mile road course at Burke Lakefront Airport. And in the first year of the running of this 500-kilometer race, and so far today we have encountered no major problems as far as accidents are concerned. Desiree Wilson is into the pit area with consultation with her pit crew. Last year, the most serious accident of the race involved Roger Mears. He suffered a leg injury, but it wasn't a real serious situation, as Desiree Wilson appears to perhaps be suffering from a heat problem.
Well, this is a very hot condition for a person who's not been driving race cars on a regular basis recently. Desiree is a very experienced driver. I think the whole world knows by now that she is the winner of a Formula One race. Now she's anxious to go. She wants to get back out on the course and go racing. Not only some refreshment being given to the race car this time, but also to Desiree, as some water was squirted down inside the racing uniform to cool off Desiree. Crew Chief Don Masala out of the sprint car racing ranks out in California. Herb and Rose Weissert, the team owners. Herb and Rose Weissert, who remember hitchhiking to Indianapolis about 20 years ago. And they commented to me, about a year ago, that the very first time they have taped Desiree's visor up to give her more wind.
And Mario Andretti is into the pits for his stop. The first stop of the afternoon for Mario Andretti, and it comes on lap number 29. So that car is getting good fuel mileage at this point. They're changing some rubber as we go down to Gary.
Right now, the crew is changing 3 of the tires. Only the left front will remain intact from the start of the race. The fuel has been topped off in a very quick stop. 17.9 seconds for your leader, Mario Andretti.
Andretti blasting out of the pit area after a 17-second stop, and he's back in the race as the crowd cheers him on.
And Rahal is coming up. He's not in the picture yet. Andretti goes into turn number 3. He holds on to the lead. Rahal is about 2 seconds behind.
And we're going to go to a full yellow situation because of debris in turns 1 and 2. Now, the full yellow situation is at the discretion of Wally Dallenbach as we take a look at Mario Andretti, the chief steward of this event. When he determines that the course should go all yellow, then they will send the safety crews out.
Anybody who has not stopped for a pit stop will certainly duck into the pits now. What a great opportunity for those who may have stayed out this long. We've been unable to monitor every one of the cars and jot down who among the leaders has been in, but I do believe that some of the cars still running in the lead lap. Howdy Holmes, for instance, I have not seen Pete Hallsmer pit. This will be a golden opportunity for everybody who has not pitted to come in and really get new rubber if they so choose, top off the fuel at a very leisure pace. Of course, those leisure paces during a pit stop are much more safe.
Just as the yellow came out, Rick Mears came into the pits for his stop, and he is back out on the racetrack now, as Mario Andretti and the other drivers are slowed because of an overall yellow situation. And the word we were given was that the pace car would come out during this type of situation, but I do not see the pace car out there at this point. The safety crews, however, Championship Auto Racing Team safety vehicles are out there picking up the debris in turns 1 and 2. The reason for this overall yellow.
So, Bob, I wonder if the drivers consider this to be a nice welcome break or not, because when you go slower, of course, you don't have as much air coming into the cockpit, and that makes it just a little warmer.
Earlier in the race, Desiree Wilson spun in the hairpin, and just a few seconds ago, she got off the course again, did not spin, but knocked down a couple of the pylons on the outside of the turn.
And when she got into the pylons, it kicked up a lot of divots, if you will, if this were a golf match, plus some dust out onto the racing surface, and that, we believe, was the primary reason for this general yellow flag.
So the first overall yellow of the afternoon here in Cleveland as we present live the Budweiser Cleveland 500. Mario Andretti, car number 3, the leader of this event. Bobby Rahal is second. Third place is Al Unser Sr. Fourth position is Teo Fabi, and fifth is Josele Garza. Rick Mears, car number 1, in, and I believe this is his second stop during this yellow period.
In a situation like this, an extra stop really doesn't mean too much. What it does mean is it'll allow Rick to go just a little further on this particular load of fuel. Now, they may be working with their gas mileage. They were able to get some indication as to what kind of mileage they were getting based on the amount of fuel that the car took the first time Rick came in. So now they have gauged that. They've got an idea of their approximate mileage on this day, given their current setup. They'll come in now under this yellow flag. They can top it off, and they'll get yet another reading on what type of mileage that they're getting.
Rick Mears picking up speed and catching up with the rest of the field as they are slowed under yellow here. 32 laps have been completed out of 125 that will make up this 500-kilometer event. Right in front of us on a lower level of our broadcast position here is actor Paul Newman, who has made his way to this race today, watching his driver Mario Andretti in competition here. Of course, Paul Newman is a former resident of this general area.
There on the screen is Rick Mears going by some of the back markers. Rick Mears has been one of the most successful kart drivers on the road courses. As a matter of fact, his winning percentage of 46% is second only in the history of Indianapolis type car racing to Dan Gurney, who won a clean 50%, or half of the road course races he ever entered in. Rick Mears has won 6 of the 13 road courses he's ever entered in.
Well, the safety crews now attend to one of the crew members who apparently has become over-exhausted because of the heat. And we also have word that there could be a driver change in the Desiree Wilson car, relief driving, which you don't see much anymore, but because of the tremendous heat and humidity here along the shores of Lake Erie, that could very well be this afternoon. Well, not only do the drivers overheat in this situation, but parts of the car also do. And in conjunction with that, ESPN and Championship Auto Racing teams present a track fact.
Here's a new term for you, temperature-sensitive paint. It's a way of judging the performance of the brakes. Now, how it works is that this paint is actually applied to the rotor on these disc brakes. And if the brake gets too hot, this paint melts and disappears. There are actually 3 or 4 colors that are used, in this case, light blue, pink, and yellow, and it gives the crews a way of judging the temperatures inside the brakes, up from 1,000 to 11, all the way up to 1,300 degrees. And to further keep these brakes cool, these large ducts are installed, sucking in all the air that comes across the front wing and feeding it directly into the brake assembly.
Well, the word is that Kevin COGAN could replace Desiree Wilson in that car. We'll find out if indeed that happens in a moment, and we'll take this break for right now and be back in a moment from Cleveland, Burke Lakefront Airport.
It's late.
All kinds of action here as the green flag came out just a second ago. Rick Mears in car number 1 is sideways in the middle stretch. Now, before this happened, when the green came out to resume activity, there was a bunch of cars heading for turn 1.
All sorts of people in there. There's Mario Andretti in the center of the screen. You're going to see him get airborne. No, we missed that. There's Desiree, the white car spinning in the opposite direction as Al Unser Jr. Bobby Rahal getting by, FABI getting by, Roger Mears getting by. Mario Andretti was involved in that and got airborne by about 2 feet and lost 5 or 6 car length positions and a couple of on-track positions. On the middle stretch, there's Rick Mears in the center of your screen getting off in the grass, all 4 wheels banging across the uneven ground, spinning, facing oncoming traffic. Mears got off of that course, trying to get the car righted. All sorts of people coming from behind him. You can see how close it was. Several cars just barely missing Rick Mears.
And it's an absolute miracle that all of those cars missed him. He gets a tow or a push from a safety vehicle and apparently is going to go back into the race, but it was a hairy moment for Rick Mears in car number 1. There is the stalled car of Al Unser Jr. He is receiving a tow down in turn number 1.
Well, Rick Mears' car definitely suffering some damage. Now, how serious it is remains to be seen. It looked to me like the rear wing in particular on Rick Mears' cars was askew. It looked like one side, the left side perhaps, was hanging down several inches lower than it was originally affixed to the race car. There is Al Unser Jr. getting back onto the race course. I don't believe yes, he did get lapped. He was sitting stopped just off of turn number 1. You see damage to the right side of Andretti's car. He was wheeled by another competitor in that mass confusion going into turn 1 as the green flag dropped. There were several lapped cars in among the leaders and great confusion when we went back to green.
Well, the question is, was Mario Andretti's car damaged severely enough to cause some concern to him when he got airborne, ran up over the wheel of Al Unser Jr. He appears to be okay at this point. We'll continue to watch the situation and try to determine whether or not it's going to mean bad news for Mario Andretti.
It really upsets the race rhythm for a lot of these drivers. Everybody had gone through their first pit stop and had a pretty good idea as to how they wanted to run the next segment of this race. Now Andretti has got to decide, do I stay where I am and just keep the leaders in sight? Do I test this race car and see how badly damaged it is? Do I charge and try to get back to the lead and show everybody else that I'm still strong? Andretti's got to make a lot of decisions here in a very short period of time during this next 25 to 30 lap segment.
Good race here involving Al Unser Sr. and Howdy Holmes as Holmes steps on the accelerator and approaches Al Unser Sr. now out of turn number 10 and onto the front stretch. Come down the front stretch here. It is JOSELE Garza and Teo Fabi. Then it is Whittington, then it is Roger Mears, then Al Unser Sr., then Tom Sneva, Howdy Holmes, Mario Andretti, and Mike Mosley. There is Howdy Holmes in turn number 2, out of turn number 2, onto the short straightaway before approaching the hairpin. Right behind him is the number 3 of Mario Andretti.
Car number 30, Howdy Holmes, and car number 3, Mario Andretti. They're on the screen. Howdy on the right, Mario on the left. They are racing for position. There's Andretti charging up, trying to outbrake Howdy Holmes. A couple of guys, veteran road racers, and Andretti gets by. Howdy tucks right in behind Mario and says, hey, you got me, but you didn't blow me away. I'm still right here. Andretti gets by with seemingly without a problem. Goes into one of those paint strips, which, as we mentioned, you got to be careful when you trip over them because they can be slippery. If you accelerate hard as you go across one of those big white lane markers for the runway, the car can get out from underneath you.
Well, it would be much slicker, of course, if we were experiencing rain. Although there was a 30% chance of rain this afternoon, there is no evidence that it's going to occur here in the next couple of hours. But if we should get rain, these cars will stay out there. They will come in and use rain tires, especially designed Rain Tread by Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. And we will race in the rain, but I don't think we will have that to contend with this afternoon. But should we, that will make those paint stripes even more dangerous to the drivers out there.
Well, there is Tom Sneva being challenged by Andretti, both cars white with red trim, and Andretti slows. I don't know if he lost control a little bit, but Andretti slowed coming out of turn number 2. Let's see with this story. Howdy Holmes moves up on Mario. Mario accelerates. Holmes moves up the battle. Remember, Mario just passed Howdy 1 lap ago, about 3 seconds from this point. At that moment, right there on the racetrack, going through the kink and going into turn number 5. Andretti comes through turn 5. Now turn number 6. Looks like that he was just momentarily out of shape as he came through turns number 1 and 2. There's Rahal right behind Andretti. So Rahal and Andretti, where they have been for a lot of this race, on the track together again.
Well, he came high out of turn number 2. There was no question about that, and I don't know whether he bumped the barrier that separates the racetrack from the pit exit or not, or whether he just got high and lost control momentarily. But he's back out there at full speed at this point, although Bobby Rahal is closing in very quickly. Now, unofficially, Teo Fabi in car number 33 is being shown as the leader at this point, with Al Unser Sr. running in second position, third Mario Andretti, and fourth Bobby Rahal. That is the unofficial word from Championship Auto Racing scorers.
And Rahal is pulling off the course. Bobby Rahal, the hometown favorite, the defending champion here. There was a lot of sentiment among the crowd for Bobby Rahal, and it looks terminal. Rahal off the course, off of the front stretch, just to the west side of turn number 1. Rahal did a 360. He's turned completely around. There he is coming back onto the course, re-entering at the point where he went off, and it looks like he has plans on getting back into the race. He remains on the lead lap, of course, because it takes about 70 seconds for the leaders to go all the way around. Rahal leaning his head over, checking the gauges, I believe, Bob.
I don't think the car is performing up to snuff. Instead of making turn number 1, he made the escape route and went straight, and it looked like he was going to be parked, but he did get the car running again. Part of the front wing is missing. Perhaps that is contributing to the problems. Bobby Rahal running very slowly now down the backstretch. Mario Andretti, car number 3, who dropped back a few minutes ago as he encountered a problem coming out of turn number 2, is back up to speed, although I don't think he's up to the speed that he was or 4, 5, or 6 laps ago.
Bob, there's all kinds of interesting things going on right now. I don't mean to keep harping on a point that may seem, and Andretti is coming into the pit. I was about to say I don't mean to keep harping on a point that may seem insignificant, but there are some unusual things happening on the race course right now. I think these drivers are really beginning to sense this most uncomfortable physical condition that they have to race in today, and everybody's trying to decide how slow can I go and still be fast. And it sounds like a contradiction in terms, I know. When I say slow, we're talking about slowing down to maybe average 110, 105 mile an hour lap. Still a pretty difficult thing to do on a 2.5-mile road course, but boy, this is an interesting race. All sorts of unusual and interesting things going on.
Doesn't look good for Mario Andretti as they have taken the cowling off of the engine compartment and are checking in. Looks like they're removing the spark plug wires. So tough luck again suffered by Mario Andretti, who had looked very strong in this race, had led most of the first 38 laps, but now a mechanical problem has brought him into the pits and quite concerned as far as the future here this afternoon.
We just got word from CART that Mike Moore, the board man out on the track for the Machinist Union team, suffered a cut on his forehead. That was the crew member we saw lying on the ground. One of the plastic water bottles being used by the drivers to keep cool today flew out of the car and hit him in the head.
Work continues on the Mario Andretti machine. They are checking the rubber, but it is certainly a much more serious situation than that. And Bobby Rahal also in the pit area as the crew takes a look at exactly what happened to him. Gary Lee perhaps can fill us in on exactly what's going on down there.
Well, right now we're watching a very dejected Bobby Rahal, the man who won here last year. He came in, the crew looked over the right front suspension and a torn stabilizer wing. Looked over to Rahal, shook the head no. Rahal hit his fist, both fists on the steering wheel, and then they threw him some refreshment. Right now he's trying to cool off, so apparently the day is over for the Buckeye Flyer, Bobby Rahal, as he's climbing out of that March. So the day will not end as it did 1 year ago.
So Bobby Rahal, the defending champion of this race, is out of competition. Mario Andretti, meanwhile, work continues on his car, but it doesn't look good from him as he wipes the sweat away from his eyes in that crash helmet. At the moment, the leader is car number 3, driven by, it was number 3, driven by Andretti, but because he is in the pits, the lead now goes to Al Unser Sr. or perhaps Teo Fabi. Third position, car number 55, driven by Josele Garza. And in 4th place, car 60, Chip Ganassi. There is Teo Fabi, car number 33. Turn number 5, headed for turn number 6. Unser second, Andretti, because he is a lap ahead of Garza in 3rd. That will change soon because Mario is still in the pits.
Bob, this is an interesting situation. A lot of the drivers have toed in their horns a little bit. Their horns of aggression. They're not driving the course as hard as they were. There goes Garza by Teo Fabi, and the Mexican passes the Italian. I was about to say that Garza and Fabi both seem to be running as aggressive as they were at the beginning of the race. Josele Garza has just gotten around Teo Fabi, and I'm pretty sure that if they were scoring Fabi as the leader moments ago, Josele has got to be the leader now, because Josele has had a flawless day to this point. And now Fabi goes back around Josele. Racing we did not expect to see in the first half of this race.
Teo Fabi with a good move there to the inside of Josele Garza as they went into turns 11 and 12. Teo Fabi taking back the position. Now they're moving through the chicane, turns 1 and 2, out of it onto the short stretch before entering the hairpin. It is Teo Garza, car 33, leading car number 55. The Italian leading the driver from Mexico City, Mexico.
And of course, something they got to be very careful with. How are they pacing? How are they pacing their race car? How are they pacing themselves? Teo Fabi and Josele Garza, 42 laps into this 125-lap race. What is that, 30% or so, about a third of the way in. And here they are racing like we're down to the last 20 or so laps.
42 laps have been completed. 125 will make up this 500-kilometer event here at Burke Lakefront Airport. Several other races on the championship auto racing team schedule this year, including the Michigan 500, which is the next race on the schedule. And of course, the auto racing's Triple Crown, the Pocono 500, which will be coming up later this year. Right now, as we once again from high overhead, Teo Fabi leads the Budweiser Cleveland 500.
Live in Cleveland. Last year at this time, we talked with this gentleman, Bobby Rahal, in victory lane. Not so today. You guys are driving these sophisticated race cars like stock cars on a half-mile dirt track, banging around out there.
Yeah, it's I was saving my energy, but we were still driving hard. And, you know, because I think I figured Mario's strategy was to try to put as many people one lap behind as possible, and then he could always relax. And I think we could have gotten him. In fact, we were catching him, but at the restart, couldn't believe they gave the restart, and Mario went completely over Al Unser Jr. and I was right behind Pancho Carr, and he just stood on the brakes, and I hit him and knocked our wing off, but the car went real well after. And then I came around this last corner, and all of a sudden the front suspension broke, and I went off into the grass, and that's that.
Obviously, the dejection and disappointment written across your face and the faces of the crew members, because you guys thought you had it dialed in and had an excellent chance at repeating here at Cleveland.
I thought so. The car was running very well. As I say, comfortably. I think Mario was working pretty hard, really, and I think we had quite a bit of distance to whoever was in third, so I felt good. I felt like in the mid part of the race we could backpedal a little bit and then pour it on for the finish, but as of late, it's just, again, it's not our day.
And how would you characterize the race being taxing on the human body?
Oh, it's just so hot, you can't believe it out there, and really you don't get any air in the cockpit, and you know, you're working like crazy, and I think over this weekend I've lost probably 10 to 15 pounds. It drains you.
And unfortunately now you're out and you have ample time to relax and cool off.
Yeah, unfortunately.
A lot of fans up there that are disappointed as well. Thank you, Bobby.
I'm sorry to disappoint my family and everybody in Cleveland, but hey, that's racing.
Red Roof, car number 2 out of the race with Bobby Rahal.
Al Unser Sr. is being shown as the leader at this point. It is very windy up here where we are. Perhaps you can hear the wind sailing through our broadcast position. We are outside. We're not in an enclosed booth. And quite frankly, we're protected from the sunshine and the breeze through here. It makes it quite comfortable where we are, but I'm sure that it's a lot different down there in the race cars where the temperature is outside 95 degrees and much hotter than that, of course, in the cockpit.
Well, we're watching Al Unser Sr., who is being scored in the top 3 right now. We're trying to determine if they're showing Unser Sr. or Fabi exactly as leader. You know, Rahal mentioned about the home state flavor of the race for him. Roger Penske, who owns that car right there, Al Unser Sr.'s car. He also, of course, owns the car driven by Rick Mears, which we saw spin earlier, was born in Shaker Heights, not too far away from where we're sitting right now. So is actor racer Paul Newman, by the way. And Jim Truman, the owner of Bobby Rahal's Red Roof Inns, resides down near Columbus, Ohio, and Amherst, where Rahal also resides. And driver Tom Bagley, who tried to make a comeback here after having not driven an Indianapolis car for 3 years, resides in nearby Lakewood. It's west of here by not more than 10 minutes. So a lot of hometown interest, but the hometown fans so far pretty disappointed because a lot of them were pulling for Bobby Rahal.
All right, here's the situation. Al Unser Sr. is the leader. Teo Fabi is second. JOSELE Garza is third. Chip Ganassi is fourth. In fifth position is Roger Mears. Sixth is Pete Halsmer. And in seventh position, car number 30, Howdy Holmes. Those are the first 7 as we are given the positions by kart scoring.
Let's talk a little bit about Chip Ganassi, now being shown in 4th position. The first time we mentioned Chip, other than the starting lineup. Remember that Ganassi has stayed with the Patrick Wildcat. His more experienced teammates have struggled with that car all year. Ganassi hasn't been impressively fast, but he's been impressively consistent. He has run a good race almost every time. There he is on the screen right now, Chip Ganassi, and now all of a sudden he finds himself in 4th position, and I'll tell you what, Bob, in a pretty good position given this stage of the race. You know, Ganassi, he's got a chance here. He really does.
Well, Chip has performed well on the ovals and on road courses. He finished 8th in the Indianapolis 500. That was his only start to this point, but finished 8th in that race, and of course did quite well last year on the various racetracks. So Chip Ganassi, car number 60, the only car of the Patrick stable still out there in the race, doing quite well, and as a matter of fact is moving up and looks to be in perhaps a passing position to move into 3rd place as JOSELE Garza, the 3rd place car, is right ahead of him.
And Chip Ganassi, of course, when we're watching there in the Gordy JOHNCOCK painted Patrick Wildcat, really putting the pressure on JOSELE. JOSELE was another one of those drivers who came out of the Super V ranks. And now there are two former Super V drivers, Garza and Ganassi. Garza in the white car with the red and blue trim on the left, and Ganassi in the, it's almost a petty blue, but it's really a Patrick blue, a Patrick JOHNCOCK blue, and the STP orange as they battle for the number 3 slot in this race. And remember, a long ways to go yet.
Chip Ganassi with a lot of experience on the road courses in the Formula 4 division. He was the 1980 Northeast Formula 4 champion with 5 wins, and also has a lot of time in Super V competition. Chip Ganassi, car number 60, and they're right together on the racetrack, and now Chip Ganassi makes a pass as they go into turn number 6, and Chip Ganassi moves into 3rd position.
And a tough pass. He passed on the high side after a right-hander turn. He got the turn done, or the pass done, before the next turn, which was a left-hander, and not more than a half a second later. A tough pass, but Ganassi not only pulled off, look at the distance he's opening up between himself and Garza.
Chip Ganassi last year in this race started 11th and finished in 11th position. Did not finish the race, dropped out with a gearbox problem, but wound up in the 11th place. Chip Ganassi from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is running 3rd. Behind, 2nd place, FABI, and the leader of this event, UNSER Sr. Here is Chip crossing the start finish line and completing lap number 48, I should say. 48 laps complete. The leader is on lap 49, and Chip just momentarily got the left side of that race car off of the pavement as UNSER Sr. in car number 7 is sneaking up on Chip Ganassi. He has already put a lap on JOSELE Garza, and now it is UNSER Sr. setting his sights on Chip Ganassi, running right ahead of him.
Well, UNSER suddenly finds himself in a commanding position in this race, getting ready to lap the 3rd place car, having just put 1 marker down on the 4th place car. As you see one of the safety trucks out on the course, you'll see that regularly on a road course. That's a routine situation. The drivers are aware that it can happen as a car stalls or comes to a rest somewhere on the course. We remain under a general green flag condition. It goes yellow into a particular area, and the race continues. UNSER putting a lap on Desiree. Begun to comment that UNSER Sr. suddenly in a commanding position in this race. UNSER is one of 4 drivers, only 4, who has completed every lap of every race so far of the 3-race PPG Industries series of Indianapolis type car racing so far in '83.
And the others are Howdy Holmes and Rick Mears and who's the other?
Oh, you had to bring that up, didn't you? We were quizzing each other last night about that, and it got away.
UNSER Sr. is in the lead with FABI 2nd. Chip Ganassi 3rd. A lap down is 55, JOSELE Garza, and his teammate, Roger Mears, in car 9.
And for the record, Rick Mears is the 4th driver, by the way.
We will be back with more action from the Budweiser Cleveland 500 from Burke Lakefront Airport in a moment. UNSER is the leader, FABI 2nd, Ganassi 3rd, and Garza is 4th. And the action continues, and just a few seconds ago, UNSER, the leader, spun coming out of turn number 6 onto the middle stretch, stalled for a time, kept the engine going, and now is trying to get back up to speed. But UNSER Sr. spun, and there was nobody around him coming out of turn 6.
Well, he didn't lose too much. You saw him go by JOSELE Garza again. That's the 2nd time he has lapped JOSELE in the last 5 minutes or the last 2 or 3 laps. But UNSER Sr. probably a little angry with himself right now. You have to concentrate every split second of the time out there. And of course, if any of you have been involved in any type of physical activity before, played any sports, you know that when you get very hot, you get very fatigued, it's very difficult to concentrate. And that's what's going on out there right now. These drivers are struggling and fighting within themselves to concentrate, concentrate, concentrate. Fight off that feeling of fatigue. Fight off that feeling of self-pity as Garza comes into the pits.
Kevin COGAN is going to replace Tony Bettenhausen. Bettenhausen, as you can see, is totally exhausted. Let's go to Gary Lee.
Well, as you can see, Tony Bettenhausen has been totally overcome by the heat of driving here at Cleveland. A very hot, humid day. They're trying to get the driving suit off. They've almost packed him in ice down the back of the suit. They poured cold water on him. trying to revive the youngest son of the great Tony Bettenhausen Sr. So right now the Provimi Vio car number 10 March is back in competition, but Kevin COGAN is now on board as the medical staff here at Cleveland continues to attend to the needs of Tony Bettenhausen.
And Kevin COGAN's car has apparently caught fire just as he was pulling out of the pits. It caught fire and he jumped out. The safety crew right there with the buckets of water that are provided this year for the crews. But Kevin COGAN with a very, very tense moment.
Kevin COGAN having what you might call a most unlucky day. Of course, when a day is hot like this, something else that happens when you refuel these cars is that the liquid and the moisture, that particularly the gasoline that is poured on there, it superheats. It superheats and it makes for a much more dangerous situation than normal. Roger MEARS was getting ready to pull out of the pits just as Kevin was motoring down the pit lane, and that car right there, the Provimi Vio number 10, which Tony Bettenhausen Jr. had just gotten out of. So a very tense moment here in the pit area, almost to the midpoint of this race.
Well, the heat is taking its toll here at Cleveland, and in the years that I have been covering auto racing, I believe this probably is about the hottest race I have ever experienced. Of course, whenever you think of heat, your thoughts momentarily go back to Riverside, California, where it's always in excess of 100 degrees, but the humidity isn't quite as bad out there. We have high humidity here today. Of course, probably the hottest race of all time was the 1953 Indianapolis 500, when most of the drivers, as a matter of fact, had to get relief during that race. In fact, it was a driver fatality because of heat exhaustion. Carl Scarborough died in the 1953 race because of heat exhaustion. And it is very warm here in Cleveland today, but Al Unser in car number 7 continues to lead this event, although he spun just a few laps ago. FABI, though, in second position, is not too far behind. And the third place car, Chip Ganassi, those 3 cars, the only one on the lead lap.
And going back to 1953, remember what it took to win the race? At least one driver did go the distance without relief, and he won it, Bill Vukovich Sr.
And JOSELE Garza in car number 55 has stepped out of his car also, and the shoelaces are being undone. Tom Sneva is into the pit area also, getting a routine stop. Tires being changed, the fuel being put in, and Sneva gets the signal to pull away, and Tom Sneva goes back in competition. Sneva, the apparent winner of the Milwaukee 150, but his car was disqualified, and Al Unser Sr. was declared the winner. Here is Gary Lee.
JOSELE Garza, we have often thought about that race when nobody finished. This could be the day today. The heat out there is taking its toll on both the drivers and the equipment, and for a while you had a superb drive going.
Well, you know, I certainly did. The mistake proven now was not taking good care of my equipment. I was driving it hard, shifting it hard, braking hard, and it slowly started deteriorating to the point where first the clutch went away, which is really no major problem, just getting out of the pits, and then it got stuck in second gear, so I'm pretty sure the linkage of the box is somehow bent.
So back to hindsight being 20/20, your strategy was to charge when in fact it should have been, let's be a little more conservative.
Yeah, I wouldn't say charge. You know, I was being a little bit conservative, but not conservative enough. It is a long race.
Physically, how do you feel?
Well, I am very tired. You know, it is a tiring race, and it's going to be hard on the guys that are still driving out there.
How about the track conditions?
It is pretty bumpy. You know, that could be part of what my linkage broke, because I was driving it like an off-road through the bumps.
Is the track getting slicker with the heat?
A little bit, not really much. You know, I think the air from the lake, the breeze is coming in, and that's helping a bit.
So car 55, JOSELE Garza out of the Cleveland.
Olson, who was one of those who came here this weekend to try to qualify and who did not, may be the relief driver. They asked Bobby Rahal if he'd like to get back there, out there in competition in Desiree Wilson's car, and he has declined. So we'll be watching that situation, but the relief driver could be Drake Olson.
Drake Olson is probably a new name to those of you who even follow Indianapolis type car racing. This would have been his first ever Indianapolis car effort. Drake is from the northeastern part of the country. He's the Nimrod factory driver for Aston Martin, and the owners of the car that came here this weekend, the former Al Aquasto ride, had been watching him for quite some time and gave him an opportunity, but they just could not get the car up and qualified.
Now, brother Bill Alsop in car number 11 has stalled on the race course, so another car has suffered bad times as Mario Andretti comes into the pit area once again. The interval between first and second place was a few seconds ago 2.42 seconds, but now is even less than that as FABI stalks Al Unser Sr. coming out of turn number 6 down the middle stretch. So there are the first two positions. Al Unser Sr. in car number 7, the Hertz Penske. Right behind him is FABI in car number 33, the Forsyth Skoll Bandit March.
You know, Bob, at this point in the race, I think if I was Al Unser Sr., I would do some experimenting. I think I would start slowing down every lap and see whether or not Teo slows with me, passes me, goes away with me. I would allow FABI, I think, to go by and just see what kind of pace FABI wants to run. You could really do some very interesting head games at this point in the race.
Al Unser Sr. is the leader, and we will be back with the resumption of the Cleveland Budweiser 500 from the shores of Lake Erie.
Soccer croquet.
Don McDuff is at the controls of the Goodyear Blimp America from Houston, Texas, high over Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, Ohio, as ESPN presents live coverage of the Budweiser Cleveland 500. Bob Jenkins and Larry Newberg, Gary Lee on hand as Bill Whittington has spun down in the hairpin. The other drivers going around him, and the safety crews out there trying to get that car positioned in the right direction so Bill can get back in the race. Bill Whittington in car number 94 started this race in 19th position, qualifying at 114.491 miles an hour. Herb Weissart, the owner of the Weissart Entry, driven by Desiree Wilson, is with our Gary Lee.
Herb, we've heard a number of names being kicked around as a possible relief driver for Desiree Wilson. What's the situation?
First pit stop, and we were a little bit concerned that she wasn't going to be able to make it the distance, but observing her lap times now, it looks like they're pretty consistent, very close to when she first started the race. We're going to go with Desiree until she tells us she feels any differently.
So at this point, she's developing a rhythm and everything's okay in the car.
That's correct at the present time. We've talked to a couple of guys to help her out. Kevin was one, but he jumped in the Provimi car for a short while, and they caught on fire. So
right now, the lady's still out there.
That's correct. That's correct. You're welcome.
All right, and Mario Andretti has come to a stop between turns 8 and 9 in the back 40 area, and it looks like Mario Andretti may be out of the race, although we said that a while ago and he went back out, but he this time is climbing out of the race car. It has stalled between turns 8 and 9.
It's been a tough sled for Mario Andretti for the past 3 seasons. We've commented it's been since 1980, and indeed in IndyCar racing since 1970. Listen to this statistic. Since 1970, that's the last 13 years, Mario Andretti has won only 4 Indianapolis car races. Prior to that, he was one of the most winning drivers. In about a 5 or 6 year period, he has won 34 times in his career.
Well, he's a former national driving champion, and he is a former world champion. Larry Newberg had a chance to sit down and talk with this great race driver.
You know, I think the word is agonize. I have seen you agonize over the IndyCar situation. You have such an intense desire on the inside to win, and it's just not been happening.
Yes, I have a tendency to really agonize when things don't go well because, as you say, I just feel time is just going to waste when you're just messing about with a car that doesn't work. So, and I just don't like to waste time. I haven't got that much to waste, I think, at this point in my career. So I just like to put it to good use. And yes, whenever I throw away a race, I just don't take it lightly. Just frustration sets in, and I want to repair that part. I want to make that right. And we're all trying very hard. I just hope we succeed sooner than later.
All right, a tough one now. Obviously, you've made the decision to be a race driver, and racing has been your entire life, or just about your entire life. Think of other careers: a businessman, public relations, acting, a baker, a mechanic. If you hadn't been a race driver, is there any other career out there that kind of catches the fascination of Mario Andretti?
Oh, yes, indeed. I think I would have been a fighter pilot in the Air Force, probably.
Well, it's been a tough road to hoe for Mario Andretti here today as he has stalled his car out in the back 40 area. As we look from the Goodyear Blimp, we'll take this break and be right back as we present the Budweiser Cleveland 500. Well, seems like every time we go away for a commercial break, Al Unser Sr. has a problem. He got off of the racetrack in turn number 12 just a few seconds ago, but he did not relinquish the lead. But you can see how Teo Fabi has again closed in on him. Now these are the only two cars on the lead lap, Al Unser Sr. and Teo Fabi. Chip Ganassi has dropped a lap down. And here is Gary Lee once again in the pit area.
And this is the back of the shoulders of Kevin COGAN. You can see the burn marks on this driving suit where the suit was burned in the fire, but Kevin wasn't. Driving relief for Tony Bettenhausen. What happened?
I went about 10 feet, and I thought it was getting really hot, and then I realized I was on fire, and I wanted out.
And there's a hose coming from your helmet, and look at the hose. It's been melted away. The skirt around the bottom of the helmet. But obviously, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. I just inhaled a little flame, a little hot air, I think, and that's about it.
What'd you say? You're not going to drive relief again?
I'm going to think about it for a while.
Kevin COGAN's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin COGAN's career as a relief driver didn't last very long.
No, Bob, it did, about 10 feet. Comment about Kevin last year. You know, a lot of people thought that Kevin was overdriving the car in the early stages of the race. And in the conversation we had with him this week, he explained that he really was pacing himself, even though it didn't look like it. The car was running so well, he was actually 4 to 5 seconds slower than his qualifying time. He explained that he was allowing the car to slide into the corners almost at its own will and letting the car wow out as however it wanted to go. And really, even though it didn't look like it because he was running so fast a year ago here, that he really was pacing himself, and had they not had a shock absorber brake, he feels they would have been in an excellent position to go the distance last year here at the Cleveland Budweiser 500.
Well, as close as I can determine, there are 12 cars still in the race. As I have watched them come around the last couple of times, I've counted 12. They are in no particular order. Roger Mears, Al Unser Jr., Rick Mears, Pete Halsmer, Mike Mosley, Desiree Wilson, Tom Sneva, Pancho Carter, Bill Kruger, Al Unser Sr., Teo Fabi, and Chip Ganassi. Now, we noticed a while ago that Desiree Wilson raised up the visor on her helmet, and we believe Al Unser Sr. is doing the same thing, and it's just a way of getting more air into the face and keeping you cool.
And it does increase a little bit of the danger element. Of course, there are several places, and here comes Al Unser Sr. into the pits. There are several places on this course where you do slow down to 40 or 50 miles an hour, and if you're comfortable enough with the car setup and got the shifting and braking down, you can take just a second to flip the visor up, get some welcome fresh air down inside the helmet, then flip it back down when you go up to the high-speed section of the race course.
So Al Unser Sr. is in for a pit stop. We have completed 65 laps now, so this would have to be considered a routine pit stop.
Well, Bob, I think routine, and that nothing appeared to be wrong with the car, but I have a feeling that he stopped a little earlier than what he would have under normal conditions. I don't think the car needed to stop quite as much as perhaps the race driver, Al Unser. Again, we're speculating. It's easy, of course, to sit up here high above the speedway with the cool, balmy air blowing through. Chip Ganassi, our third position car, is coming to a stop on the course in the kink near turn number 4.
Al Unser Sr. and Pete Halsmer race side by side through the hairpin. Now Al Unser picking up the throttle, and so is Pete Halsmer. Those cars staying right together. But there is the stalled car of Chip Ganassi, who is in third position. So tough luck for this young man from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mario Andretti, you remember, stalled out in the back 40. Well, he's been towed around to the pit area, and here he is.
And Mario Andretti is trying to relieve himself here at the pit area. Mario, watching you guys drive earlier, reminded me of years past, you guys driving sprint cars. It was wild out there for a while.
Well, it wasn't all that wild. I think I was driving pretty steady pace, and we just had goofy restart there that I still don't understand how they really conducted things there, because they said they were going to determine who's the leader before a restart after a full yellow, and I had no idea I was the leader or for that matter anybody else. When we arrived there in a group, they gave the green, some went, some backed up. And all of a sudden I had enough momentum, I couldn't stop, so I had to dive to the inside of Lil Al, and he clipped my inside wheel, and I went for a ride, and that was the beginning of my saga here.
But the car was handling well up until that point.
Yeah, the car was fantastic. Just a real lousy shame, because the car was just performing beautifully.
So a big crowd favorite, and driving the sponsorship colors of Budweiser, Mario Andretti out of the race.
All right, right, and the situation is that because Al Unser Sr. came in for a pit stop just a few laps ago, the lead now is being held by Teo Fabi, Al Unser second, and Pete Halsmer is in third. An interesting race so far, 69 of 125 laps complete. The top four, Teo Fabi, the leader, Al Unser is in second position, Pete Halsmer is third, and Mike Mosley is running fourth. Well, ESPN will resume its coverage of NASCAR racing as we present live coverage of the Champion Spark Plug 400 on Sunday, August the 21st at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 9:30 Pacific Time. All the drivers from the NASCAR circuit, including Bobby Allison, Richard Petty, Darrell Waltrip, Terry Labonte, Kyle Petty, will be there on the high banks of the 2-mile track at Brooklyn, Michigan International Speedway. Join us for the Champion Spark Plug 400 live on Sunday, August the 21st. Well, Al Unser Jr. in car number 17 has had his ups and downs, and he appears to be on an up right now. Could be that he is the fastest car on the racetrack because he has just passed our leader, Teo Fabi. There he is, running on the right side of the screen, car 17, Al Unser Jr. And although he is several laps down, he is running well out there on the course.
Bob, our best guess is about 4 laps down. I've been watching him for quite a number of laps, and there is absolutely no question that this young driver is the fastest car in the course right now. Ah, youth, it is a beautiful thing, isn't it? You would expect now that this very warm weather would affect those younger drivers less than the older drivers. And Al Unser Jr. probably is the youngest driver in this race. And even though he's 4 laps down right now, he still may have a chance.
Well, Al Unser Sr., it appears, is requesting relief, and we'll be watching that situation very carefully as Mike Knight, the communications director for Championship Auto Racing Teams, has passed that word along to us. Meanwhile, there is his son, Al Unser Jr.
Al Unser Sr. has had the best year among all of the IndyCar drivers this year. He leads the point standings, as a matter of fact.
Rick Mears second in points at this time with 37. Tom Sneva is third with 21, and Gordon Johncock and Howdy Holmes are tied for 4th place with 20 points in the CART PPG IndyCar World Series standings.
We go back to that pit stop of a couple of laps ago, let's make that about 5 laps ago, of Al Unser Sr. when we commented that appeared to be a little early as far as a pit stop for the car, and it may well have been a situation where Al Unser Sr. had been on the radio with Roger Penske. There is Chip Ganassi's car, a little bit of OJT, on-the-job training and repair work going on right there. Ganassi has worked his way back around to the pit area, and you can see the shimmering heat waves coming off of that race car.
Gary Lee has a report on whether or not Al Unser is indeed seeking relief. Gary?
At this point, it's still a question mark because they have gone without radio headsets for a number of laps. But Al, the last time by, was tapping the top of his helmet, which is an indication from the good old days before the radio hookups that I'm tired, I need relief. So at this point, we're still waiting. Perhaps we'll have somebody else in car number 7.
All right, there is Al Unser Jr. continuing to maneuver himself around this 2.48-mile road course. And there is his father, Al Unser Sr., who is being shown right now in second position. So we'll be looking next time around to see if he comes into the pit area and does indeed turn that car over to somebody else in a relief role. Well, he's passing very quickly the yachts and the pleasure boats out on Lake Erie to his left. This year they have constructed an Armco barrier that separates the racetrack from the lake, although, as we said earlier, a Coast Guard vessel is out there in Lake Erie just in case something goes wrong. You can see the tremendous heat that's being generated from these cars as Al Unser moves through the middle stretch there. And Teo Fabi, the leader of this event, is in for his pit stop.
And at lap number 71, this one comes a little more close to, again, under normal conditions, which we certainly do not have here today, this one comes a little more close to a normal time for a pit stop.
And it's not a real quick pit stop for Teo Fabi, that's for sure. We're watching where Al Unser is on the racetrack to see if he takes back over the lead. Al is now moving through turns 11 and 12, crossing the start-finish line, and indeed does go back into the lead. And Teo Fabi's car has stalled in the pit area. They began to push him away, but the car stalled. I don't know whether that means that there is a serious mechanical problem or whether he just stalled it coming out of the pits. We'll see. They are inserting the starter into that car once again, but meanwhile Al Unser has gone back into the lead and now built it as Fabi can do nothing but sit in the pits and wait for the car to start.
Of course, it's always impossible to judge accuracy at this stage of the race, calling commentary from above the pit area, but again, concentration. The cars are very delicate when they're pulling away from the pits in the low gear. It's a creeper gear. You've seen the crews, they have to push the cars just a little bit really to keep them rolling, and you have to concentrate very hard in these Indianapolis cars to get them up to speed.
And now here is the leader, Al Unser, car number 7, the Hertz Penske. Al Unser started this race in 7th position, qualifying at 118.408 miles an hour. Al Unser Sr. leading this event. Now Teo Fabi begins to catch up. ESPN and Championship Auto Racing teams present another Track Fact.
This Cosworth IndyCar engine turns out at least 700 horsepower. Just what exactly is a horsepower anyway? Well, by definition, it is 550 foot-pounds of work, or the amount of force that is required to move 550 pounds 1 foot per second. Somebody sat down quite a number of years ago and decided that's the amount of work that the average horse can turn out.
Bob Jenkins, Larry Nuber, and Gary Lee inviting you to stay tuned for more coverage of the Budweiser Cleveland 500 from Burke Lakefront Airport in Cleveland, Ohio. Race driver Bill Alsop is being escorted to a safety vehicle and will probably be taken to the hospital for a checkover. Here's what happened just a few seconds ago.
Alsop, remember, had been in the pits for quite a number of laps, actually quite a number of minutes. The flames coming out over the left rear wheel, coming out of the left bank of the engine. Bill struggling to get out of the race car. The fire crews, Johnny on the spot, Bill getting out. He drops down to the ground and rolls around, but I think it was a precautionary measure. Alsop down on the ground, rolling around. He was unable to tell whether or not he had flames. Now the fireman, not seeing flames on Alsop, is working on the race car. Now he looks over his shoulder and sees Bill, but still sees no flame and stays with the car. But Alsop was standing up and talking to the fireman a couple of seconds after that shot, and he appears to be okay.
So Bill Alsop is talking with the CART officials and appears to be okay after a fire in his race car. He had just rejoined the race after stalling on the course and got to the middle stretch and fire broke out in that car, but apparently Bill is okay.
We do have a rundown at this point. Again, the two leading cars, of course, Al Unser Sr. and Teo Fabi. I'll try it one more time. Teo Fabi. Those are the two guys who are out front and right now are in control of this race. And we apparently have gone to a general yellow. And in just a second or two here, we'll have a complete rundown for you on all the cars that are remaining out there. And a couple of interesting surprises.
The pace car is out on the track. I believe this is the first time today that we have seen the pace car out on the racetrack, slowing the cars. Not only are we attending to the Bill Alsop problem, but there is debris also reported in turn number 2. So while we are yellow, we'll be back in just a moment with more. Pit stops being made. Tom Sneva in and now out of the pits. Also, Al Unser was in and out, but Teo Fabi did not come in because he made a pit stop just a few seconds ago, so FABI is back in the lead as we once again look at the Goodyear blimp flying overhead, the Goodyear blimp America, and there is the shot from the blimp at the controls once again today is the senior pilot, Don McDuff, who hails from Anson, Texas. The Goodyear ship Blimp America is headquartered in Houston, Texas. There you can see the cars moving through turn number 5 now as the pace car continues to slow the cars and the safety crews continue to check over this race course and pick up some of the debris that has been scattered over it. There is Tom Sneva, the winner of the Indianapolis 500 in 1983. We came to Milwaukee to cover a 150-mile race for you, and when we left the air, we thought that Tom Sneva had won that race. But on a post-race inspection of the race car, it was found that the car was illegal, and Tom Sneva's win was taken away. It was given to Al Unser. We had a chance to examine this controversy.
This is Car Tech Director Kirk Russell. Kirk, if you will, reiterate for us the rule.
Okay, this year, all body work must be 1 inch above the bottom of the car. The structural section, which is the section back within the bodywork that supports the engine and the driver. All of these edges and associated pieces must be firmly mounted and remain 1 inch above the lowest part of the main structure.
Okay, and the infraction at Milwaukee involving Tom Sneva was?
The portion of this side pod was lower than the 1 inch raise that we require in accordance with the rule.
And what is the tool you use to measure that?
We have a bar that has been measured to be true, that has ground-bearing surfaces that run on the main structural member of the car, and these turned steel cylinders that run on the lips of the bodywork. Now, the way we take the measurement is we elevate the car, and 2 people get under the car, and people support this beam, and we look to see if these surfaces touch and these surfaces do not touch. And this mechanism then rolls down the length of the car.
The last time we talked with Tom Sneva, we were in Victory Lane at Milwaukee, but Tom, that victory lasted about 2 hours. You were disqualified. Again, show us the problem area on the race car.
Well, I guess when they did their technical inspection, they found a 20-inch piece of this area right here to be 1/8 of an inch too low. And that's the problem area. Our contention, obviously, is that there was about an hour in there between the checkered flag and technical inspection where no security was provided. It's our responsibility to make sure the car meets the rules and regulations. We did our job. We lost control of that vehicle for an hour in Victory Circle in that area. No security was provided for us. There's all kinds of people around and on the car. And, you know, it ended up to be 1/8 of an inch low, and they completely disqualified us. They looked at you know, the car is a March car. There's a lot of March cars in the race. The side pods are mounted identical to everybody else's. The same Lord mounts, the same brackets, the same braces. They checked the mounts. They didn't find any slotted areas. They couldn't find anything that would possibly cause it to slip or be able to be adjusted down lower. And for them not to consider any of the facts that were surrounding this case, we feel that, you know, a lot of bad judgment was used in their decision.
I understand they have appointed 3 judges, and they will be independent people that are not involved with the permanent racing team here. So I think they would probably look at the evidence a little better than the 3 stewards, because the stewards were just looking at the book, not at what happened to the car.
So at that point, they can either reverse it or go with the stewards. If they go with the stewards, your recourse is what?
Right, if they go with the stewards, then we only have one choice left, and that's take it to a civil court, because never in the history of racing has a race been taken away for such a little minor infraction. And it has nothing to do with the performance of the car. It's just because the square didn't come out square, I guess, as they say it, according to the rule book. So they didn't think or take in consideration what happened after the race and what happened during the race. We got a little dirt and gravel under our pod, and it swelled down a little. They didn't take that in consideration. People got on the car, and we had testimony that people were warned to get off the car, and they weren't interested in that. They were just going to stay with the rule book, and I expected that, so I wasn't too disappointed. I would be a little disappointed if the 3 judges look at it fairly and then tell us that they're not going to allow the protest, so then we have to think pretty deeply about going to court.
It's not unusual to see sponsorship flags flying off the tow rigs, but you guys and the crew put up a very unusual flag on yours, the skull and crossbones. Tell us about that.
Well, we feel they stole the race from us, so we've got to steal it back, and pirates used to take things back, so we're going to try to get it back.
Well, the 3 judges who will be hearing this disqualification, Burdette Martin, a former director of professional racing for the Sports Car Club of America, will be the head judge. He has selected former driver Phil Hill and retired circuit court judge L. Sheldon Brown to hear the hearing that will be held on July 12th at 9 o'clock in the Detroit area. Now, the exact location has not been announced, but it will be shortly. Martin is from Northfield, Illinois. He has over 30 years of racing experience. Hill, of course, the 1961 Formula One driving champion. And Brown, who is 70 years old, has served as a circuit court judge in the Chicago area, but has also competed in SCCA amateur races for some 10 years. So those are the 3 judges that will hear the Tom Sneva appeal. And we go to the pit area for a report from Gary Lee.
Well, here is really a new face in championship racing. John Forsythe, only your 2nd season as a car owner, and this year you own the Skull Bandit. Right now, Teo Fabi is out in front.
That's
and
right.
I know at the Speedway, when he set the Indianapolis Motor Speedway 1- and 4-lap records, you said, well, this is great, but just wait till we get on the road courses.
Well, of course, we felt he was a very brilliant road course driver, and I think he's starting to show you stuff here. We had a little problem early on in the race, but we're starting to get settled down here, and we got our pit stops arranged and pretty well set for the balance of the race.
So you are very happy in being in communication with Teo that there is a certain rhythm that has developed and you're set to go the distance.
I think we're set. We're looking at, I think, 1 more pit stop, Gary, and then we should be in business.
What are you guys doing to keep Teo cool besides pouring water on him when he makes a pit stop?
We're just praying a lot right now. I tell you, this heat is just, really, it's unbearable. I mean, you know, just standing here, it's unreal. But, you know, inside that car at 140, 150 degrees, you really wonder how those guys can hold up for this length of time.
I've always heard that green is unlucky, but in this kind of heat, I don't think it matters because the heat is the same for everyone.
No, Fabi said he liked green, so no problem.
The money is green, that's what you win.
That's right.
Thank you, John Forsythe.
Thank you.
Bob, there are a couple of tags to that Sneva controversy at Milwaukee that we probably ought to point out. Basically, the stand that the team is making is that they are not disputing the fact that the car measured illegal in the post-race inspection. What they are saying is that the car was basically damaged by something that occurred after the race happened. The sanctioning body CART is contending that the car is to be built with rigidity involved and that the car should not have been damaged simply because of something that happened after a presentation was made in Victory Lane. So the question of rigidity here is what that 3-judge panel has to make a very subjective decision on.
For the conclusion of the Budweiser Cleveland 500.
The situation here in Cleveland is basically a race between Pete Halsmer and Al Unser Sr. A lap down in 3rd position, Mike Mosley, and a lap down in 4th place is Tom Sneva. We are 93 laps into this event, and the interval between the leader Pete Halsmer and Al Unser running in 2nd position has varied on the last few laps. Last time it was 1.67 seconds. Here is Pete Halsmer crossing the start-finish line, and we'll get an interval here between himself and Al Unser. It is now 3.22, so it went from 3.6 to 2.6, and now it's back to 3.2 seconds.
And Pete Halsmer unofficially is turning laps in about 1 minute and 18 seconds. Now, that is 3 seconds slower than what he qualified. But let's put this into perspective. Remember last year when Kevin COGAN was doing so well and just decimating the field? Kevin was running about 4 miles per hour slower when he was out front putting everybody under the ground than what he had qualified at. So Halsmer is really running at a pretty good pace considering at what point in the race we are in. Pete Halsberg looks like he's in a very good place. And another thing that's been happening, as Bob pointed out to you, Al Unser every other lap seems to move up just a little bit, but you get the feeling that Halsberg is holding this advantage at about 2 seconds, exactly where he wants to be, and stay in front of Al Unser.
Last year, the corner workers positioned themselves around the race course with very little protection. This year, they are standing in these cement barriers, and those are genuine old-fashioned septic tanks that have been brought in here. And the corner workers position themselves in there, and of course, display the yellow flags to the drivers as they come around if there is a problem in their particular area of the racetrack. They're pretty brave to stand in those things because the car should get out of control. Of course, they can't get out from these things. You just have to stay there and take it. We have not had that situation arise, and hope we don't, of course. But very interesting that the corner workers working from septic tanks.
Yeah, but if you could just get the cement to be lightweight, what a roll cage that would make in a sprint car, huh?
All right, Pete Halsberg is on the backstretch, getting into turn number 5. Well, when we came to Cleveland this week for the running of this 500-kilometer race, we also visited the downtown area, and Larry Newber found a very interesting situation.
Okay. Most historians agree that when the Indianapolis Motor Speedway installed traffic signal lights around the oval back in 1930, that was the first application of traffic signal lights for automobile racing. And it revolutionized, to agree, the signaling system of the sport. Up to that year, a green flag meant 1 lap to go, but from that day forward, of course, the green meant go, stand on the gas, the race is beginning. The racing fraternity more or less conformed itself to the rules of the nation's highways. Well, we're in Cleveland, Ohio this weekend, and there is historical traffic light significance there in Cleveland. I'm standing at the intersection of 105th and Euclid on the east side. It used to be a busy, bustling business district. And back on the 5th of August, 1914, the very first traffic signal in the history of the United States was erected on this corner. Sir? Sir, can you come up? Did you know that you are underground right now at a very historical intersection?
Yes, I know that.
How do you know that?
Because my father used to live down there way back when he was a youngster.
What's historically significant about this intersection to you?
Well, there used to be a bowling alley over here, a roller skating place over there, and they ripped it all down now.
Did you know about the traffic signal?
What about the traffic?
The very first one in America ever put up was put up right at this corner.
No.
Yeah, aren't you impressed?
I'm impressed.
St. Mosley's on the same lap with him. Well, we have 11 cars that are still running in this race. They are being led by Pete Halsberg in car 66. Al Unser is second, and Mike Mosley third, Tom Sneva fourth. And running in 5th position, also a lap down, is Teo Fabi in car number 33. So those are the first 5 with 95 out of 125 laps completed. We'll be back in a moment with the resumption of the Budweiser Cleveland 500. Unser has reassumed control of this race now with a 2.45-second lead on Pete Halsberg. A lap down in 3rd, Mike Mosley. Tom Sneva also a lap down in 4th. And Teo Fabi is a lap down in 5th position. 6th place belongs to Pancho Carter. He is 4 laps down. So is Rick Mears, and so is Roger Mears. In 9th place, Desiree Wilson. 10th is Al Unser Jr. 11th is Phil Kreuger, and 12th is Herm Johnson. Those 12 cars are the only cars out there in the race. We continue to watch Al Unser Jr. out there, and must say that he has to be quite disappointed because he has been running quite well, but unfortunately had an ignition problem early in the race that put him down several laps, and he's just been unable to make up those laps.
And in just the last couple of laps, actually the last lap, Howdy Holmes has re-entered this race. Howdy had what must have been an hour-and-a-half pit stop, if you will. They have repaired the damage to that race car, not the damage, the repairs that were required on the mechanical aspect of that race car, and Holmes is back out. You know, we had a very large entry field here at Cleveland this weekend. Matter of fact, it was the largest field of cars to ever enter a road racing event sanctioned by the championship auto race teams, and something like the 2nd largest field in the history of championship auto race team racing. Dick Simon was one of those drivers who came here with a very unusual front wing configuration. He was one of those who just missed qualifying by about a half a second. Bill Alsip was not an official qualifier, but was added to the field as one of the promoter options. Greg Leffler and the Bob Soto spectacularly painted number 64 race car, a stock block Chevy, a non-qualifier. The attorney, Harry McDonald, Tom Bagley coming out of retirement. Jerry Carl, Danny Angayas did not qualify, but was added to the field. Former sprint car champion Tom Bigelow, and a former skier and a Nimrod factory driver, Drake Olson, attempted to qualify but did not succeed. A driver from down in the Garland, Texas area, Richard Hubbard, and a dirt track sprint car driver from nearby Eastern Ohio, Barry Rubel, was also among the non-qualifiers for the Budweiser Cleveland 500 here at Cleveland this weekend.
Well, the interval has now closed in from 2.45 seconds to less than a second as Pete Halsmer puts the pressure once again on Al Unser Sr. These are the first two positions in this race with 90, make it 100 laps completed. We have 25 more to go. You mentioned Howdy Homes, the sponsor of that car, the Domino's Pizza people. They are also sponsoring the Pocono 500, which will be run this year on the 14th of August. The Triple Crown of the third race in auto racing's Triple Crown, the Indianapolis 500, the Michigan 500, and Pocono. Time trials will be held on Wednesday and Thursday, August 10th and 11th. Final practice will be on Saturday the 13th, and then the 500-mile race starting at 1 o'clock on August the 14th at Pocono International Speedway. Well, we have several races to cover for you this year of the championship auto racing teams, and our next live event will be on a road course in Riverside, California, the Los Angeles Times Budweiser 500. That will be on Sunday, August the 28th. We hope you'll join us at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 1 Pacific Time, for that 500-kilometer event at Riverside, California, where the temperature also sometimes gets to be near 100 degrees. The leader, Al Unser, car 7, is in the pits for his final pit stop, and they are pouring water, as you can see, into the cockpit in addition to pouring fuel into the car and checking over the tires. A very refreshing cold water shower for Al Unser as he moves back out onto the racetrack.
And with 100 laps down and 25 to go, that may do it. That may have been Al Unser's last pit stop. And if they're getting halfway decent mileage at all, he should be able to go the distance. They should be able to go about 70 to 75 miles on a load of fuel. So we may have just seen the last pit stop by a guy who figures to be into this one right to the very end and maybe battling with Peter Halsmer for victory here this afternoon.
Tom Sneva has passed Mike Mosley for third position on the race course, so moved Tom Sneva up into third, Mike Mosley down to fourth. Still out there running in fifth position is FABI, although he has great problems and is pretty much using the gearbox to slow the car down.
The Penske chassis is showing well here this afternoon. Al Unser Sr. as well as Rick Mears, both of those cars still out on the racetrack and both running in the top 5. But the really interesting story for the Penske chassis here this time around is the performance of the PC-10s, the 1982 chassis. 4 of the PC-10s that entered here this weekend qualified in the top 12. Peter Halsmer was the 5th fastest qualifier. JOSELE Garza 8th, Roger Mears 11th, and John Paul Jr. 12th. And 2 of those 10s continue to run. Halsmer right now the leader. He'll have to stop one more time, and depending upon how efficient the pit stop is, he'll come out either in first or second. And also Roger Mears right now runs in, let's see, 5th, 6th position in a PC-10, a 1-year-old car, is also continuing to gut this one out on the racetrack. So not only the 11s of the Penske stable, but last year's car is performing very well.
We're looking at Al Unser, car number 7, who is running in second position at this point. He is a considerable distance behind Pete Halsmer, but Halsmer has to have a pit stop coming up very soon. Perhaps we'll get a better idea of when Halsmer will be coming in from the car owner, Frank Arciero.
Indeed, we have Frank down here, and when can we anticipate that final pit stop?
Oh, in about 2 more laps.
Now, this car really is bits and pieces of 2 different cars that were wrecked the past couple of months, and right now there are a lot of smiles on the faces of the crew down here of car 66.
That's right. This is part of it in PC10 we wrecked, and the other part of it that Johnny Parson wrecked. So we put two together, we made a complete car.
So a quick pit stop, get him in and out, back in the lead. It'll be a big victory for Pete Halsmer and Frank Arciero.
It will be.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Frank Arciero has been around racing for many, many years and has just decided to get back into it full time here in the last couple of years. And perhaps he has a victory in sight here today. Pete Halsmer is moving through turns 5 and 6 now, out of turn 6 onto the middle stretch. And we'll be watching to see if he makes his pit stop this time around. Well, one of those who we have speculated about possible relief driving, Desiree Wilson, is still out there competing and doing a fine job, too.
Yeah, you know something, Bob? You and I were speculating during one of the breaks recently that you get the feeling that right now we're talking more about driver factor, I think, than we ever have in any of the races that we have covered. And I almost think that we have neutralized the performance of the cars that are out on the course right now. We're talking about something burning in the inside of the drivers who are left in this course. I think we're talking more about drivers sucking it up, as my old football coach used to say, and going when the going gets tough. And boy, I tell you, we have never seen the going more tougher than what it is here at Cleveland this weekend. I think right now we're watching a race that's really being controlled by the driver who can champion intellectually over what has to be fighting him as he sits in a very hot cockpit and tries to concentrate and tries to perform physically.
We have lost several cars, and we have lost several of the top contenders. We lost Gordon Johncock very early in the race and several others. But this has been anything but a boring race. We've always had good battles for position. And right now, although Pete Halsmer has a 20.25 second lead over Al Unser, remember that Pete Halsmer has a pit stop due here in just a few minutes. And if he can make a good pit stop, he could get out right with Al Unser, and we can see a tremendous battle for the checkered flag at the end. Well, we'll continue to watch this situation as Pete Halsmer leaves here with Al Unser running in second position. We'll be back after these messages. Halsmer has not yet made his pit stop. He's moving through turn number 9 at this point. Now through turn number 10 and on to the main straightaway. And if he moves high on that straightaway, he will come into the pit area. But as we look down toward the entrance, he does not choose to come in, and Pete Halsmer stays out there, and you begin to wonder whether he's going to stretch it a little bit too far here.
Well, remember, you can go a little faster. We commented on this earlier when the tank is running down low, and at this point, Pete would probably like to establish as much of a lead over Al Unser Sr. as he possibly can before he pits again. He's actually passed the point a long time ago as to where you have to worry about whether or not he could go the distance after this last stop. There's no question now that once he stops again, that'll be it. What he's trying to do is set up, maybe come in and pit, Bob, after a really good lap. A lot of the drivers like to do that. Just crank off just one of the hottest laps he's had in the last 15 or 20 minutes. Gives you a good feeling to go into the pits and come out in good fashion.
Here's Gary Lee.
What's the old story about politics and religion making strange bed partners? Well, how about racing? This is Roger Penske Jr. He drives the Frank Arciero Super V. Right now, he is giving pit board signs to the pit man out along the wall, who is then in turn giving those signs on to Pete. But keep in mind, this team is fighting the team of Al Unser, which is owned by this man's father, Roger Penske Sr.
That's a very interesting situation, Gary. Roger Penske Jr. signaling for the Arciero racing team, and Pete Halsmer is in the pit lane. Here he comes for the final pit stop. Let's see if it's a good one. Back down to Gary.
Here he comes. The crew is ready. Pete, your leader, with about a 20-second lead. They may change tires on the right side. They check the tires. The fuel is being topped off. A drink of water for the driver from Lafayette, Indiana. They're changing the left front tire as well. Well, both left side tires are being changed as Al Unser streaks by into the lead. A slow pit stop for Pete Halsmer. There goes the water, dousing the driver. The visor is up on the helmet. He is shaking his head. He is ready to go. The jacks are down. The car is on the pavement, and the car is underway. But a slow pit stop at 24.5 seconds. He almost kills the engine, but now Pete Halsmer is away.
Moving slowly out of the pit area, and Al Unser has indeed gone around, is up to speed, and is all the way through the backstretch into turn number 5. So he's going to have a pretty good lead on Pete Halsmer. Not a real good stop for Pete.
No, it wasn't. I was was trying to really fix in on Pete's face, Bob, to see what kind of condition he appeared to be in. Obviously fatigued, but he looks as fresh as any of the drivers that I have seen in the last hour. To be sure, whatever is left in Pete Halsmer in the Arciero number 66, he's got to show it now. 108 laps have now been completed. We will go 125. He has got 17 laps to go and apparently about 20 seconds to make up.
Yeah, he had a 20-second lead on Al Unser before he came in. Now he has a 20-second deficit to make up. We had a change of position a couple of laps ago for 6th. We'll run down how they're running now. The leader is Al Unser. 2nd place, Pete Halsmer. 3rd place is Tom Sneva. 4th is Teo Fabi. And 5th is Mike Mosley. In 6th place now is Roger Mears. Dropping back to 7th is Pancho Carter. 8th place is Rick Mears. 9th place is Desiree Wilson. And 10th is Al Unser Jr. That's the way they run at this point with 108 laps completed out of 125. That'll make up the Budweiser Cleveland 500.
What makes
car number 66, running in 2nd position at this point, trying to catch Al Unser Sr., who went into the lead as Halsmer was in the pits. Pete Halsmer going through the kink, headed for turn number 5, has about 20 seconds between himself and Al Unser.
Remember that earlier in the race, Al Unser's track was not without peril. We saw Al Unser spin, and it was a hard spin. He got off of the course and bounced around a little bit and spun around right in the middle of one of the runways. Also recall that we were speculating, based on some of his own gestures from the cockpit, that maybe he wanted relief earlier. So even though there's a 20-second differential right now between Al Unser as he darts down the precipice one more time with only about 16 laps to go, which means that Halsmer would have to make up more than a second a lap. This one is far from over. Halsmer appears to be, at least visually, from what we could see during the pit stops, a little more fresh in the cockpit than what Al Unser is. So we've got 16 laps to go, and this road course with about 70 or 80 seconds it takes to go around one lap, as hot as the temperatures have been today, we're still talking about a powder keg with a fuse that's burning, and who it's going to explode in favor of, we're not going to know, I don't think, until the final lap.
20.9 seconds now between Al Unser and Pete Halsmer. 3rd position continues to be maintained, or I should say is being held now by Mike Mosley, as Tom Sneva has slowed on the race course, and Teo Fabi has moved into 4th place. Sneva has fallen to 5th. So Mike Mosley, who started this race in not particularly good position, Mike Mosley started in 14th position, has now moved up into 3rd in that KREUGER stereo car. Here's the leader, Al Unser, car number 7, moving through turns 11 and 12 and completing lap number 111.
You know, as we watch Al Unser go around, we look at this race course. We commented earlier as to how safe this course really has been constructed and how nice it really has been for the drivers. We have had a nice, safe race here today. There's Al Unser going by turn number 3, around the kink, along the lake. There's the backstretch. See Pete Halsmer right there. The X marks where Pete Halsmer is right now on the track. Al Unser is right where his X is on the racetrack. That's about a 20-second difference. Now you'll see Pete Halsmer on the racetrack. There he is, going to the hairpin just in front of the X, which marked the spot just a couple of seconds ago.
So it continues to be about a 20-second lead for Al Unser. The car now pursuing and, in fact, sneaking by Pete Halsmer is Howdy Holmes in car number 30. Howdy is not in contention because of a lengthy period in the pits. However, he's running quite well on the track now as he has passed 2nd place Pete Halsmer there as they enter turn number 5.
Bob, we've begun to develop the point about how safe this race was and how gratifying it is to come to. a Major League Indianapolis car race and not really have to have that lingering threat of injury. We have a lot of people that tune into our broadcast, and we know that we have a lot of friends and drivers who have suffered injuries recently who tune in. We'd like to make comment about George Janssens, who had a closed head injury from a midget accident a couple of years ago, working very hard to recover. Rick Hanley, a stock car driver out of the USAC ranks, and Bob Breback, whom we've seen many times on ESPN broadcast in the USAC stock car on the 1 mile dirt. Bob Lawton, also the president of NSCA out in Missouri, who is recovering from an illness. We'd also like to make comment about all the efforts that are going on to help the Bruce Jacoby family. And those of you who are still interested in Bruce's condition, he does remain in a coma. The United States Auto Club has opened a fund to help the family, which is in need of funds to take care of the doctor bills and all the other incidental expenses that have come up. And if you're interested in Jacoby and the recovery, you might contact United States Auto Club in Indianapolis.
And Johnny Parsons Jr. had open heart surgery in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. He is back home and recuperating well. Here are the cars that were out of the race or are out of the race. Those out early included Danny and Gaius, Gordon Johncock, Chris Neifel, Kevin COGAN, and Scott Brayton. Also out, Steve Chassie, Bobby Rahal, the defending champion, John Paul Jr., Bill Tempero, and Bill Alsop because of a fire in the car. JOSELE Garza dropped out, so did Mario Andretti, Tony Bettenhausen, and Chip Ganassi. Those are the cars that are out of the race at this point. Here is the leader, Al Unser, car number 7. Al Unser Sr. leading the event. Al Unser Jr. started second in this event, but had ignition problems early on, spent a considerable amount of time in the pits. Al Unser Jr. is back out on the race course in contention, but not up in the top 10.
113 laps are now complete. We've got 12 laps to go in this one, and Al Unser Sr. looks like he's got this one in control. It's been some time since he's won one on the racetrack, and believe you me, this guy who operates with a great deal of pride, and most will agree that in the last 20 years of Indianapolis car-type racing, he's probably been one of the 3 most prolific drivers in terms of success, and he would very much like to win this one on the race course. He's not had a day that has been an easy one. As we mentioned to you a couple of minutes ago, he's gone through a lot, but boy, he is really gutting it out. You just got that feeling that in the mid stages of this race, Al Unser Sr. was thinking about pulling in and maybe taking a rest, but once that opportunity for victory began to dangle in front of him, boy, he sucked it up and went after it.
All right, here is Al Unser moving up on the rear wing of Tom Sneva's car. Al Unser moves through the hairpin, now steps on the accelerator and gets around Tom Sneva as he heads for the kink, setting up for turn number 5. I believe a few minutes ago I said that Johnny Parsons Jr. There is Pete Halsmer, by the way, crossing the start-finish line, so you can see the interval between the two, still about 20 seconds. I believe I said earlier Johnny Parsons Jr. underwent the open heart surgery. It was indeed Johnny Parsons Sr. He has been released from St. Vincent Hospital in Indianapolis and is back home in California. I understand his wife caught him welding in his shop the other day.
Yeah, you can't keep a good man down, and for a race driver, you can't even get close to that sort of thing. Again, talk about Al Unser Sr. as we look at Pete Halsmer, who has never won an Indianapolis car race. Sr. has won 37 times, second best among all the active drivers.
Top 4, Al Unser, Pete Halsmer, Mike Mosley, and Teo Fabi, 13 laps completed. Cleveland, Ohio, where Al Unser continues to set the pace, going to the inside to pass the 46 car driven by Phil Krueger. We have less than 10 laps to go in this event now, and Al Unser continuing to set the pace. The owner of this team, of course, that consists of Al Unser and Rick Mears, Roger Penske, and here he is.
Difficult part of the race. You've done your work. The crew has done its work. Now it's just a matter of watching the laps wind down.
Well, I think that the heat has really been something. I know Rick he's come in for water. I know Al tapped the top of his head. If he can stand it out there at this pace, it's going to be tremendous. It's a great credit to everybody still running, no matter who wins the race. We just hope that maybe today we can get a win. But as you know, we haven't been able to get in there until the last lap. We seem to get beat, so hopefully today we can do it.
We understand there has been a problem with radio communication with the car car, and that's why he was tapping the helmet, indicating perhaps he wanted relief earlier.
That's right, but we brought him in and, of course, gave him water. That's why we pitted him early on this segment, to give him water and try to get him pumped up so he could run to the end, and he seems to have done a good job so far.
So right now it's just a matter of waiting.
Well, yeah, 7 or 8 laps to go is a long time to wait, but let's keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you, Roger Penske.
While we were mentioning those on the sick list, so to speak, we were be remiss if we did not mention the name of Johnny Rutherford, who, of course, was injured at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in practice. Johnny Rutherford hopes to be back in competition for the Michigan 500, which is 2 weeks from today.
8 laps to go, and there is your leader, Al Unser Sr. We got him on the clocks this time around, by the way, to find out just how quickly this guy is running. And even though it's been a day of fatigue, not only for the automobiles and the athletes alike, Al Unser has been turning some pretty decent laps here in the latter stages of this race. Less than 25 miles, less than 40 kilometers to go. Remember that the track is 2.48 miles around, and it's a 125-lap race. It's about 4 kilometers for every lap around this road course. That's the Fat 40. That's that box down there at the east end of the racetrack. Now he comes along the 1/2 mile approximate front stretch, the longest and fastest part of the racetrack. During qualifying, the speeds reached 180, 185 miles per hour right there. Al coming to the chicane, the final 2 corners, looking for the start-finish line. He qualified at about 1 minute and 14 seconds, and now he has just completed this lap at 1 minute and 19 seconds. So he is 5 seconds slower than what he qualified. Incidentally, that would have put him in 22nd position on the grid had he qualified at that point. So you really can't say that Al Unser's times are anywhere near embarrassing. Indeed, they're quite admirable considering the conditions.
We've had a change for 3rd position. Teo Fabi, who slowed down because of a braking problem, has picked the pace back up and has passed Mike Mosley. Teo Fabi is 3rd. Mike Mosley is 4th. 5th position belongs to Tom Sneva. 6th is Roger Mears. 7th is Rick Mears. 8th is Pancho Carter. 9th is Desiree Wilson. And in 10th position is car number 17, driven by Al Unser Jr. Those are the top 10 at this point. The other 3 cars running are Phil Kreuger, Howdy Holmes, and Herm Johnson. So we are nearing the final laps of this race, and Al Unser Sr. appears to be well on his way to victory. It'll be his 2nd win in a row. That is the provisional win we have to consider in Milwaukee. And of course, we told you earlier that that hearing involving the Milwaukee 150 will be held on July 12th at 9 a.m. in the Detroit area.
Not only will it be his 2nd win in a row, again pending the results of the hearing, but also it'll be his 4th consecutive top 2 finish. Al Unser Sr. has 2 seconds, a 1st, and possibly another 1st here this year. So what a performance. One of the finest runs in a consecutive race string that we've seen in Indianapolis car racing in quite some time. Remember back in 1980 when Johnny Rutherford had just that unbelievably smashing year in the Chaparral with Jim Hall? That's the only other performance that I would say would rival that of Al Unser so far here in 1983.
Well, we've been talking about the heat and the drivers suffering from it, and we would also at this point like to thank our technical crew, the cameramen, and all the other technical assistants who have stood out in the hot sun and made trips from various positions on the racetrack to bring this telecast to you today. We appreciate their efforts and hope that they didn't get too warm. Well, let's look at the summary of last year's race here in Cleveland. Of course, Bobby Rahal, a hometown favorite, won his very first Indianapolis type car race. Last year there were 6 leaders, 2 yellows. The race was just a little over 3 hours in length last year. The average speed was 101.234 miles an hour, and Bobby Rahal's margin of victory was 21 seconds. As we once again have the shot from the Goodyear Blimp America from Houston, Texas, with Don McDuff at the controls. We pick up Al Unser in car number 7, the leader of this event. He is coming out of the kink, going into turn number 5 once again, with now 5 laps to go. Actually, less than 5 laps to go, as 120 have been completed.
You know, I suppose that at this point in the race that you figure when you get so close to the end that the laps are becoming easier for Al Unser Sr. Us knows that's perhaps true to a bit of a notion, but boy, I tell you, the weather has been so uncomfortable here at Cleveland this day that I got to believe that every lap is an absolute agony for Al Unser, even though he's way out in front.
Running in 11th position is Phil Kreuger in car number 46 from Santa Monica, California. He's 32 years of age. Phil Kreuger started this race in 24th position and is 11th, and quite honestly, it's a pretty good performance for Phil, who does not compete regularly on the kart circuit.
Well, Santa Monica, California, it's the same hometown as Robert Redford, as a matter of fact. This is a PC9, about a 2 or 3 year old machine, and they also picked up one of the local radio stations as a sponsor here this week at Cleveland. Phil Kreuger, one of those guys who's been struggling the past couple of seasons, crashed hard at Indianapolis 2 years ago, but back at it here at Cleveland.
Once again, the leader, Al Unser, at the end of the backstretch, making the left-hand turn, number 6. Making the right-hand turn, number 5. Now into the left-hand turn, number 6, and on to the middle stretch. He has widened his interval over Pete Halsmer, and it's now more like 35 seconds than 20 as it was a few laps ago. So Al Unser Sr. has this race in hand. There is no question about that if the car can last. And he only needs about a little over 3 laps to take the checkered flag.
Al Unser Sr., prior to this season, his last win had come in 1979, if you can believe that, of his 36 career wins, 37 now that he has been declared the winner at Milwaukee. He won 3 times in 1978, once in 1977, but really the height of his career in terms of victories was 68 through 71. In those 4 years, Al Unser Sr. won a total of 25 IndyCar races. They were only his 7th, 8th, and 9th years as an IndyCar driver. He really asserted himself at a relatively early age in his career as one of the top drivers in the history of the sport.
Al Unser putting another lap on Pancho Carter in car number 21, who runs in 8th position at this point. 3 laps to go. And once again, our praises to this young lady, Desiree Wilson, who has hung in there all afternoon in car number 34. There were reports that she was becoming exhausted and wanted relief, but she did not get relief and has competed all afternoon despite a couple of spins.
Well, she really has, Bob. I think earlier in the race we said that there was one legitimate racing driver who just happens to be a lady, and she is every bit of both of those things. And today she's shown us that she's a pretty tough competitor under the most adverse of conditions. She's a lady who showed a lot of class not only on but also off the racetrack at Indianapolis the past couple of seasons. She was besieged by the press and reporters, and she handled it by and large in a pretty good fashion.
We have 2 laps to go now before the checkered flag, and here is Al Unser moving through turns 11 and 12, completing lap number 123. In one more lap, he will receive the white flag. Turn number 1. Now the car drifts high out of turn number 2 onto the short straightaway leading to the hairpin. Al Unser maneuvering through the hairpin right now, picking up the throttle through the kink, a long sweeping turn that takes him near Lake Erie, as you can see him flashing by the boats that are positioned out there. Now into turn number 5.
As we watch Al Unser Sr., let's go back to the last series of pit stops when on the racetrack, Sr. and Pete Halsmer were basically racing for position together. Al Unser Sr. came in and he pitted before Halsmer did, and he came out about 20 seconds in arrears of Halsmer. Then when Halsmer pitted, the pit stop appeared to be very casual. They gave a lot of attention to Pete. They gave a lot of attention to the rubber on the race car. And when Halsmer came out, all of a sudden he was 20 seconds behind. Over 40 seconds somehow had evaporated between Al Unser Sr. and Pete Halsmer during the last pit stop. It just goes to show you how those little things, and when you hear that saying so many times, the race is won or lost in the pits, certainly this one was. Now, you don't know exactly all the reasons why that pit stop of Halsmer's may have been a lengthy one, as the white flag flutters for Al Unser as he comes down the front stretch, goes into turn number 1, but without a doubt, that long pit stop, about 20 or 25 laps to go, was the difference in this one.
Since 1956, in terms of road races, this is Al Unser's 43rd start in a road race, and this will be, if he can hang on for another little over half a lap, will be his 5th win on a road course since 1956. Mario Andretti has won the most races on road courses since 1956 with 10. Dan Gurney second, Rick Mears third, Bobby Unser fourth, and Al Unser in fifth place. But he's going to pick up another win and tie his brother for fourth place in just a matter of moments, it would appear. He's now through turn number 7, now on to turn number 8 at the west end of the racetrack. Now setting up for turn number 9, a short straightaway that leads him to turn number 10. Out of turn number 10 and on to the main straightaway for the final time. Al Unser Sr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the current point leader in the CART PPG IndyCar World Series, adds to his lead today. He's through the front stretch, braking and gearing the car down through turns 11 and 12, crossing the start-finish line, and there is the win for Al Unser as he signifies the win by raising his right hand off of the steering wheel, moving through once again turns 1 and 2, but the race is all over, and Al Unser is the winner.
And I guarantee you this is a big, big moment for this guy. It's actually been 4 seasons, if you count this as the 4th season, since he has won a race on the racetrack. A lot of conversation has been made of it, a lot of publicity on the broadcast media and the printed media about how long it's been since this guy won a race. And just about everybody agreed when it was announced over the winter that Al Unser Sr. was going to become a member of the Penske team, that next win was just, a couple of races away. And now he's got one. He's got one at least temporarily in his hip pocket on the 1 mile at Milwaukee, but this one looks like it's his.
Finishing in second position, just crossing the start-finish line a few seconds ago, and a good run today for Pete Halsmer. Unofficially, Teo Fabi will finish third.
We're here.
It has been an afternoon of interesting things, and the interesting aspects continue. Notice that Al Unser Sr.'s car has been parked a considerable distance away from Victory Lane. The media and everybody else has been kept away from it. Now they are walking Al Unser to Victory Lane. Obviously, the CART technical officials want to make sure that nothing happens like did at Milwaukee, and there's no room for anybody getting on the car and possibly weighting down the side pod. So Al Unser walks to Victory Lane, and Gary Lee is right there with him.
Well, first of all, a big jug of water, some other liquid refreshment in the form of beer, and a big kiss from the wife. And Al Unser, it had to be one long hot day for you.
Ooh, boy, is it. I'm telling you, I didn't know how long it was going to be, but this was too long.
Earlier in the race, you spun a couple of times. What precipitated those?
I just was after it too hard and was trying too hard, and I had to slow down.
At one point, you tapped your head. I understand you had some radio communications laps with the pit area. Was that to signify you needed some relief?
Yep. If there would have been, I would have done it, but I made it, so that's all that counts.
But it was your decision not to get out and not the team's.
Right.
So at that point, what prevented you from pulling in and climbing out?
You want to win.
Have you ever driven on a day that's hotter than this? Well, obviously, he shakes his head no. Trying to pull off that triple layer driving suit. The ice inside the towels on the back of the neck. And obviously a very tired but also very happy Al Unser.
We understand, Al, how you may not want to talk at this point, because obviously it's been a very tough race, but we congratulate you on your win here in Cleveland, Ohio this afternoon.
Bob, that's incredible. That is not a young man, and I'm not in any way insinuating that Al Unser is by any stretch of the imagination old. But I tell you, it doesn't get easy when you get past 30 or 35 years of age, and just being outside trimming the bushes or cutting the yard for an afternoon when you stop once or twice for an iced tea is pretty tough. There's a guy who's been in the cockpit for about 3.5 hours. Remember, the drivers sit out there for almost a half hour before you even go green flag. He's had his life on the line. It's been an incredible afternoon in terms of the atmospheric conditions, the temperature and the humidity. And I got to tell you, I am very impressed with those drivers who were able to stay out during the entire race. And my hat is really off to this guy. This was a tough one.
Post-race activities are going on, and we'll be back with more of them in a moment as we show you the top 8 finishers of today's Cleveland Budweiser 500, won by Al Unser Sr.
Every week.
victory lane. Celebration going on as Al Unser sprays the crowd with champagne. Our congratulations to Al and to the driver who finished second here today. By far his best performance ever in kart racing, Pete Halsmer. Here's Gary.
Pete is one tired driver from Lafayette, but a big smile on your face, and it had to be that last pit stop because I could see the anticipation in the cockpit. You were ready to go. The car was working, but it was a slow one.
Well, we want to be sure we're there. You know, we're still a little new in this game. I can't say enough about those guys. I'm glad they did slow because, by golly, we're here.
Now, we talked about the heat, the fatigue for the drivers, but another factor with you, you're still really on the mend after that practice crash at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So physically, how is Pete Halsmer?
I'm shot. I'm pretty used up, but I feel all right.
In running, in marathon running, we have what we call the wall. There's that certain point we reach it and we think, we can't go on. We simply can't make it. Where is the wall here?
Well, I don't know. There seems to be a whole bunch of them around there. I came real close to. But I don't know. There's several tough spots in there. When you come in for a pit stop and you get rejuvenated a little bit, you go back out and you know you got to start all over again. I don't know. I'm just really happy to finish. I'm happy for Frank Arciero. He's been behind me, and all the people at Arciero's and the people in Indianapolis and Lafayette, they've been behind me. We had some tough luck at Indy, but by golly, we're coming back.
You had a lot of friends up there in Lafayette, a lot of Purdue grads pulling for you. Congratulations, Pete. Great ride.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, Pete Halsmer finishes second at today's race. Unofficially third was Teo Fabi, then Mike Mosley, and finishing fifth was Tom Sneva. Well, the 44,000 people gathered here begin to file out. We'll be back in a moment.
We're back live at Cleveland. Besides driver fatigue, look at the blisters on the hands of Desiree. Desiree, can you turn that hand over for us to show the blisters on that hand? We talked to you before the race. You went the distance. Desiree, there were several times during the competition we thought perhaps you would come in for relief. Did you make the final determination to stay out there?
Well, to be honest, I really got a bit exhausted in the first session when it was really hot. But after the first pit stop, the crew threw some water over me, and then I felt fine from then on. I seemed to get better and better.
Give us a big smile. We'll see you next time out. Thank you, Desiree Wilson.
Our thanks to, once again, our technical crew and to all of those involved in the Budweiser Cleveland 500. You did a tremendous job of promoting this event, bringing out 44,000 people on a day when the temperature reached the mid-90s. The top 12, Al Unser, the winner, Pete Halsmer second, Teo Fabi third, and Mike Mosley fourth. Finishing fifth, Tom Sneva. Sixth was Roger Mears. Seventh, Rick Mears, and eighth, Pancho Carter. Ninth place went to Desiree Wilson. 10th was Al Unser Jr. 11th, Bill Krueger, and 12th was Howdy Holmes unofficially. The Cleveland Budweiser 500 has been brought to you by Pontiac. Test drive a Pontiac at your Pontiac dealer, because at Pontiac we build excitement. By Micotin, give your athlete's foot the Micotin cure. And by Kelly Springfield, we're out to change America's tires. For Larry Newber and Gary